Hey guys, tonight we're crawling through Strangler fig roots and century-old ghost stories where even your flashlight feels uneasier than a doorstep cat. Right now, you stand ankle-deep in mud where kings once bathed in lotus-scented pools. The air hangs heavy, not just with humidity, but the weight of 900 years dissolving into vine-choked silence. And let's be honest, if this foliage had teeth, you probably wouldn't survive till morning. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'll flirt with time zones while you drift off. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your boots sink into sludge that once fed a million souls. Angkor's terraced reservoirs, now just mosquito nurseries. Above you, moss eats the last carvings of celestial dancers. Their stone hips twist eternally, frozen mid-step when the music stopped. A gecko skitters over a crumbled lion's head, its tongue flicking at absent offerings. Mainstream history loves the big numbers, like Angkor, housing a population rivaling ancient Rome. But touch these lichen-crusted walls. Feel the grooves where someone's sweat watered the sandstone. That's the story math can't tally. Breeze snakes through the ruins, a poor mimic of monsoon winds that once filled sails on temple canals. You spot a carved Naga serpent, its seven-headed hood now a bat condo. Legend claims they guard sacred gold under the central tower. Reality check. Locals whisper about French archaeologists in the 1920s, digging feverishly, only to flee empty-handed after nightmares. Quirky tidbit. Those same carvings might have been painted in neon hues. Traces of red pigment cling like faded lipstick. Imagine this gray jungle glowing fuchsia and gold, more Vegas than UNESCO site. A frog plops into stagnant water, ripples warping your reflection. For a heartbeat, you're wearing a silk sampot and jade earrings. Blink, and it's just you and the mosquitoes again. The Khmer didn't just build temples, they engineered a hydraulic miracle. Canals zigzagged for miles, mirroring constellations to predict floods. But historians still argue whether the water system collapsed from drought or the aristocracy's gout-sized greed. Your hand brushes a pillar, fingers meeting not stone, but the grit of crumbled ambition. 18 words max. Let's try. Each brick here represents a sack of rice, taxed from farmers who starved as reservoirs silted. The empire's spine snapped slowly, vertebra by vertebra, until even the gods yawned. Moonlight bleeds through the canopy, spotlighting a roofless gallery. Here, where pilgrims circled clockwise, chanting until the walls hummed. Now, just cicadas gnawing at the silence, you glimpse modern spray paint near the base, proof that stupidity outlasts empires. But lean closer, the vandal's name has already blurred. The jungle licks its wounds clean. Your phone dies. That last 1% sacrificed to Instagramming a stone elephant. Darkness pools thicker now. Some claim Angkor's architects aligned temples with galactic patterns, ancient GPS for celestial navigation. Others insist it's just pretty coincidences. Me, I'll bet the truth written in those star-mapped canals, now choked with frog spawn and regret. A fruit bat screeches, its cry bouncing off laterite walls. You freeze, half expecting armored ghosts. But fear's wasteful here. Better to sit back against a pillar, still warm from the sun's memory. Close your eyes. Listen past the crickets. Hear it, the faint clink of chisels, the growl of ox carts, heavy with stones. A civilization's breath held too long, finally exhaled into root and rot. And beneath your palm, the faintest vibration, as if the earth itself is whispering. The jungle always collects its rent. You're standing where twilight stains limestone cliffs purple centuries before the first tower rose. The air smells of clove smoke and wet earth. Then you hear it. Bronze gongs echo through the valley. A warlord approaches with elephants armored in hammered gold. That's Jayavarman II, muscled like a jungle cat, and just as feral. His coronation in 802 CE didn't just unify warring clans. It fused politics and divinity like monsoon mud binding bricks. Here's the sales pitch. Kings aren't just rulers, they're living vessels for Hindu gods. Loyalty to the crown becomes spiritual duty, carved into temple lintels and whispered in rice paddies. Ever seen a tax collector pray? You will now. Annual harvests fund marble shrines, not hospitals or granaries, because heaven needs real estate. Rumor says Jayavarman's priests performed the Chakravartin ritual on sacred Phnom Kulin, a 9-day chant to become universal monarch. Picture this. Holy water poured over his head, then spooned from his footprints as relics, his sandals sweat-soled as miracle tonic. Would you drink it? Don't answer. Modern scholars found stone carvings of the rite, complete with naked ascetics and flaming coconuts. They're still debating whether the coconuts were literal or just really bad translation work. Watch workers haul sandstone blocks up ramps slick with morning dew. Calluses tear, blood stains the stone pink. But this isn't oppression. It's a backstage pass to eternity. Carve a god king's face into a tower, and your name lives in his shadow. 800 years later, your great-great-grandkids will still shrug when asked about you. Fair trade, ever tripped over a sacred sword? Jayavarman's myth claims his blade was smelted from 9 lightning bolts. Blacksmiths allegedly worked during thunderstorms, letting the sky hammer the steel. Sounds cooler than your uncle's forged samurai eBay special. Archaeologists found similar blades in Laos, still sharp enough to slice through conspiracy theories. Here's the catch. Divine kingship comes with divine problems. When the god king gets dysentery, the empire's literally full of shit. Nobles start side-eyeing each other. Maybe Vishnu wants a new meat suit. Some historians think Jayavarman faked his own death 3 times, resurfacing with miraculous recoveries to spook rivals. Imagine canceling your assassination plans because the target's funeral turned into a surprise birthday party. The temples hold clues if you know where to look. Check the South Gallery's carving of a royal procession. Spot the water buffalo chewing on someone's cape. That's either profound symbolism or a sculptor trolling his boss. Court records mention a buffalo incident during the fourth consecration festival. Coincidence? Probably not. You'd think building Angkor Wat would be their LinkedIn highlight. But Jayavarman's successors one-upped him with bigger temples and pettier dramas. One king's inscription brags about his victory over midday nappers in the royal guard. Another tried to tax monsoons. Spoiler, the rain didn't pay up. Now, the million metric ton question. Was this divine hustle sustainable? Temples need upkeep. Gods get fussy when their noses crumble. Subjects start whispering. Why's Vishnu need a fifth swimming pool? But question the system, and you're not just a rebel, you're a heretic. Funny thing, that sacred mountain where it all began. Locals whisper that Jayavarman's bones still anchor the summit. They say, if you lick the rock at dawn, you'll taste gold and betrayal. Don't actually lick it. Centuries of bird crap, remember. Historians still argue whether the God King gig was genius PR or a cult of personality with better architecture. Either way, the stones remember. Press your ear to a mossy wall. Hear the faintest chant. It might be priests invoking Shiva or workers grumbling about overtime. The monsoon arrives like a drunken drummer. First, a hesitant patter, then a roar drowning all thought. You wade through thigh-deep water where engineers once played God, diverting floods into grids of canals. Their secret. Angkor's reservoirs mirror the stars, Orion's belt etched into earth and water. Engineers studied celestial runoff patterns, timed planting seasons to Venus's risings. Modern hydrologists found their error margin under 2%. Better than your weather app. Silt clings to your toes as you pass sluice gates taller than elephants. Each stone fits without mortar, a puzzle perfected over monsoons. Workers sang hymns while laying them tight as a king's fist, smooth as a nun's tonsure. Catch the graffiti. Some mason carved a grumpy face on Gate 5's keystone. Maybe the foreman never looked up. They funneled entire rivers into man-made lakes, barrays stretching 9 miles across. Royals jet-skied, metaphorically speaking. Inscriptions brag about liquid mountains supplying 3 harvests a year, but sip the reservoir water today. It's laced with ancient fertilizers. Yes, someone tested it. No, they didn't volunteer twice. Here's the kicker. Angkor's canals align with 12th century constellation maps. Scholars argue whether it's sacred geometry or engineers trolling astrologers. One fringe theory claims monsoon priests used floating lanterns to mimic stars, creating a reflected universe to please Vishnu. Found a terracotta lamp shaped like the Big Dipper, but it's probably just coincidence? Probably. Farmers prayed to the moon for rain, engineers prayed to slope gradients. Their masterpiece, a 5-tiered irrigation network that outlasted the empire. Modern rice paddies still use their spillways, proving 9th century tech can embarrass modern bureaucrats. Looking at you, leaky dam near Phnom Penh. Monsoon feasts featured hydraulic delicacies, lotus root soups symbolizing channels, jellies shaped like dams. Nobles bragged about their digestive systems, flowing smoothly as the Ta Prohm aqueducts. Records mention a chef exiled for serving congee deemed too viscous. Historians still argue whether that was a culinary hot take or commentary on tax policies. Ever seen a 1,000,000-liter reservoir empty overnight? Neither did they until the sieves clogged. Workers dredged canals with reed baskets, slogged through leech-infested muck for 2 copper coins a day. Their toolkits, bamboo shovels, palm fiber ropes, and pure spite. Bonus, finding a fingernail imprint in a dried mud brick. Some things transcend centuries. Disaster struck in slow motion, decades of silt strangling the veins. Dendrochronologists count drought years in tree rings, find 37 years of ouch. Then came the mega monsoons, centuries of engineering prowess washed away in weeks. Imagine being the guy who said the system's floodproof right before the palace became a kiddie pool. Debates rage. Did shifting trade routes drain their budget? Or did a pampered bureaucrat ignore a crack in the dam? One leaked memo, scratched on a palm leaf, blames rogue otters undermining levees. Sure, blame the weasels. Classic management move. Farmers abandoned celestial schedules, planted when the soil screamed. Soldiers traded swords for shovels, until even metal tools grew scarce. A last-ditch effort, digging canals deeper. Bad move. The water table swallowed their shovels and their pride. You find a broken sluice gate, rusty hinges screeching like a dying gondola. Press your palm to the moss. It's warmer than expected. The stones still remember their purpose. Somewhere beneath your feet, ghostly water flows backward through time. Sunrise bleeds across 5 peaks, sandstone glowing like embers in a god's forge. You shoulder through jungle steam toward walls that outpace skyscrapers. No cranes, just bamboo scaffolds lashed with vine rope. Imagine hauling a 2-ton block uphill while termites gnaw your ladder. Workers sang as they dragged stones 34 miles from the sacred quarry. Their secret sauce, palm sugar mortar. Yes, the same stuff in your sticky rice dessert. Archaeologists found finger swipes in 900-year-old glue someone tested if it's still edible. Spoiler, do not recommend. Each tower aligns with the spring equinox. Dawn hits the central shrine, Vishnu's stone toes warming first. Priests tracked shadows like celestial clocks, declared harvest dates by how the light pooled. Modern laser scans show their measurements were off by 0.03 degrees. Overachievers. You brush lichen off a dancing maiden, her hips frozen mid-twirl. A million carvings here, gods, demons, that one cheeky monkey picking lice. Scholars gasp at the artistry. You notice a chiseled crocodile wearing sunglasses. Kidding, maybe. Bas-reliefs show elephants being lugged uphill on log rollers. Inscriptions mention voluntary labor, but that's royal PR spin. Workers got paid in rice and fish paste, and a front row seat to the afterlife. 5,000 artisans supposedly carved Angkor Wat. Historians still argue whether that number's inflated, or if anorexia was just really trendy. Fun fact, the western entrance faces death, literally. Unlike most temples facing east, Angkor Wat's main gate bows toward the setting sun. Some say it's a tomb in disguise, a cosmic waiting room for kings. Check the central tower's foundation. Human-sized urns filled with, let's call it, organic compost. Blister your palm on a wall. The sandstones warm same temperature as skin. Workers polished these blocks with nothing but river sand and stubbornness. No mortar in the joins, just perfect geometry, locking chaos in place. Monkeys pelt you with lychee pits. Some things never change. Ever seen a temple that's also a calendar? Angkor Wat's outer gallery has 1,200 square meters of carvings, each panel marking lunar phases. Miss a day, some poor sculptor had to redo the whole damn orbit. Here's the kicker, those iconic towers, optical illusions. From any angle, only 3 are visible. Architects forced perspective using unequal base heights. Take that, Renaissance, Italy. Whispers linger in the library pavilions, ghostly rustles of palm leaf manuscripts. Monks once copied scriptures here and griped about the boss. One scribble in a margin reads, "If the king wants another epic poem, he can write it his damn self." Night falls. Bats pour from tower windows like living smoke. You sit where pilgrims burned incense for 8 centuries, ash still embedded in the cracks. The stones exhale stored sunlight, a warmth that outlives dynasties. Press your ear to the gallery wall. Somewhere deep in the rock, a million chisels still sing. You step into the cracked belly of what was once a lake, 8 miles long and deep enough to drown an empire. Your boots sink into mud, turned to pottery shards by centuries of thirst. Monkeys screech where herons once speared fish. Now, the only ripples come from lizards fleeing your shadow. Engineers built these reservoirs to outsmart the skies. Monsoon rains funneled into canals wider than football fields. Gravity did the rest, sluicing life through clay pipes to rice paddies glowing jade green. For 300 years, it worked. Kings bragged about taming the Mekong's tears. Then the water burped. Silt crept in like uninvited guests, choking channels with microscopic arrogance. Maintenance crews. They'd been reassigned to carve another 3-faced Buddha for the king's new wing. By 1300 CE, the West Barre Reservoir held less water than your bathtub. Historians still argue whether climate dried the taps. or if Angkor's engineers were victims of their own overconfidence. Your thumb traces a carvings of laborers dredging muck, their stone faces locked in permanent eye rolls. Royal decrees ordered annual cleanouts, but try enforcing that when your boss is considered half-deity. One temple mural shows a bureaucrat rowing a golden skiff through pristine waters. Reality check. Taxes funded more lotus ponds than dredging boats. Here's the kicker. They stockpiled rice like doomsday preppers. Granaries near the docks could have fed every citizen for 2 years. Except silt doesn't care about your emergency rations. When the canals clogged, armies' ants marched grain 17 miles uphill instead. Ever carried a sack of rice in 100-degree heat wearing a linen loincloth? Didn't think so. Wriggle your toes in the dust. It sparkles with mica flecks. Workers mixed this glitter into reservoir linings, crushed stone, and arrogance turned waterproof. Modern engineers tried replicating the recipe. Failed. Turns out you need something textbooks don't mention, probably ox urine and existential dread. Listen. That faint gurgle isn't ghosts, it's your canteen sloshing. Irony tastes like warm plastic here. At its peak, Angkor's canals moved more water daily than the Lowe's Angel's Aqueduct. But scale became the trap. More farms meant more ditches meant more silt meant, well, you're standing in the mint. Dig your nail into a cracked slab. See those rainbow swirls. Algae fossils, evidence of the reservoir's final gasp. When water stagnated, toxins bloomed. Peasants drank it anyway. One 12th century poem whines about nobles sipping coconut wine, while farmers hallucinated river serpents in their rice bowls. Bonus fact: they used mosquito larvae as currency in dry years. No joke, basketfuls traded for a day's ration. Imagine paying your taxes with squirming insect caviar. Hunger's a hell of a motivator. You kick a pebble, it skips 3 times across the lake bed. Children once did this with flat stones during monsoon festivals. Now, the only things skipping are geckos fleeing the sun. Climate models say the rains shifted, monsoon clouds pivoting south like snubbed lovers. Angkor kept building temples, while the earth baked harder than a street vendor's crepes. That scent, not lotus blossoms, it's the sweet rot of palm sugar, same stuff holding the temples together, dripping from cracked jars in a nearby pit. Workers guzzled it for energy, while sealing canal leaks. Crash diet, 10,000 calories a day, and still wasting to bone. Touch the reservoir wall, carved with 8-armed Vishnu riding a stone wave. His face eroded into a serene shrug. Maybe he knew the endgame. You don't need lasers to see Angkor's fatal math. More mouths, less water, infinite ambition. Night arrives early here. Stars reflect in stagnant puddles, rippled by creatures that outlasted god-kings. Your flashlight catches a glint in the mud. A bronze sluice gate, corroded finger still pointing southeast toward the Mekong they couldn't quite conquer, and the sea that drank their future. The bronze sluice gates corroded finger points southeast toward salt winds, now carrying something sharper than Mekong mud. Merchant ships outpace, plodding ox carts loaded with Angkor's pepper and ivory. You catch the acrid tang of camphor resin, same stuff Khmer traders once rubbed on elephant hides to repel leeches. Overland routes were the empire's arteries for 6 centuries. Picture this: 2,000 ox carts creaking toward China, loaded with cardamom and rhinoceros horn. Then came the churn of sails. By the 14th century, Arab dhows could haul Angkor's yearly spice yield in 3 monsoon-blessed weeks. Efficiency murdered the caravan. Your boot crunches a pottery shard, blue-white glaze peeking through dirt. Chinese celadon. Archaeologists found 80 tons of smashed teacups in Angkor's canals. Quirk. Most were deliberate fractures. Local belief held that broken vessels confused river ghosts. Whether Song dynasty potters appreciated their artistry, becoming spectral decoys. History doesn't say. Dust swirls where Siem Reap's markets once bristled with Javanese batik and Persian silver. Stand here long enough, you'll hallucinate haggling voices. 2 monsoon-tanned hides for that Burmese ruby. Throw in a flask of crocodile bile, final offer. Now the only traitor is a hornbill stealing your trail mix. Historians still argue whether geography doomed Angkor or just bad nautical timing. Ports like Ayutthaya, strategically placed on the Cayo Freya, siphoned trade like casino croupiers. Khmer kings, too busy carving mountain temples to notice their tax revenues evaporating. Tug your collar, that sticky breeze isn't humidity. It's the ghost of logistics. Picture ox cart drivers sweating through 12-degree latitude shifts. Now imagine a Tamil merchant shrugging, monsoons doing the heavy lifting while he sips palm wine on deck. Game over, wheeled transport. Here's the tragedy. Angkor knew about ships. Bas-reliefs show Khmer vessels with eye motifs painted on prows, same as modern Thai fishing boats, but their navy guarded freshwater rivers, not the shark-toothed Gulf of Siam. Pride anchors deeper than any hull. Step over a fallen lintel carved with lotus garlands, once above a toll booth charging 30% per cart. Inflation adjusted. That's like paying 7 Starbucks lattes to move a sack of rice. No wonder merchants plotted maritime detours. Find the faded ochre handprint on that wall. Not ancient graffiti. Workers here used betel nut paste to mark tax storage rooms. Chew enough betel, your saliva turns blood red. Miss those revenue quotas. Let's just say auditors had vivid ways to express disappointment. Gold flowed south between 1,300, 1,400 CE. Ayutthaya's shipyards ballooned, while Angkor's coin mints went quiet. Ever seen a Khmer silver horsebell coin, 2 grams lighter each decade, like watching an empire slim fast? By 1450, they were punching holes in them to simulate value. medieval shrinkflation. You're standing on a dike that doubled as a trade road. Left side rice barges, right side spice caravans. Genius until both lanes starved. The kicker, modern satellites show the road aligns with Orion's belt during the dry season. Astrology as infrastructure would have been poetic if not for the bankruptcy. That vine, don't touch. It's Strychnos nux vomica, poison nut tree. Medieval traders coated arrow tips with its sap. Coincidentally, Aethea's envoys brought gift casks of wine during peace talks. 14 dead nobles later. Let's just call it Southeast Asia's first documented toxic asset. Salt air ruffles your map. Angkor's inner canals still pump water today, thanks to French engineers' 1920s fixes. Too little, too late. Like adding cup holders to a sinking chariot. The sun dips, your shadow stretches toward the Mekong. Somewhere downstream, a container ship blares its horn. Same frequency as extinct water buffalo herding calls. Progress echoes strangely here. Poke that termite mound. Workers chewed termite saliva as an energy boost, medieval Red Bull. Now the insects gnaw temple doors, inscribed with protection prayers. Even pests get the last laugh. Silk roots didn't fade. They rerouted, avoiding Angkor like a pothole. You know the type. Smooth highways get built. And suddenly, your once bustling driveway becomes a relic. Difference is your driveway doesn't have 5 million ton temples reminding you of the glory days. Crouch. See those grooves in the laterite. Oxcart wheels wore them down over centuries. The deepest ruts line up with Venus's 12-year celestial cycle. Coincidence? Probably. But stare long enough, the sky itself feels complicit. Your canteen's nearly empty. Irony, this lake bed could have quenched a city. Instead, it coughs up pottery fragments and dead trade deals. The Khmer had a saying, rivers walk, kings talk. Today, the Mekong trudges seaward, carrying NO Chinese letter S of ox carts. Just silt and salt and stubborn hope. Your sandal scrapes a fissure in the reservoir floor, a crack wide enough to swallow hope. Maps call this the West Barre. 6 centuries ago, it held 1 billion gallons. Now dust devils pirouette where lotus flowers once fed kings. Think dry seasons are bad now. Between 1,362, 1,395 tree rings show 63 straight months of rainless skies. 5 years. Villages resorted to eating termite queens, their abdomens swollen with stolen monsoon dreams. You're standing on history's irony. This cracked mud once anchored floating hospitals. Khmer texts describe surgeons operating on rafts, using water lilies to numb patients. Cure the sick atop the cure for thirst. Poetic until the poetry curdles. That mound ahead, not a burial site. Dig down, you'll find 98 rat skeletons in a fused lump. Starvation drove them to cannibalism. Then monsoon rains drowned the survivors mid-feast. Nature's punchline stings worse than the heat. Historians still argue whether the Great Deluge of 1431 came from typhoons or burst dams. Either way, imagine 7-meter walls of water flattening rice stockpiles. Salvation brewed in the same clouds that starved them. Squint at the stone stela. Its Sanskrit carvings beg Indra for rain, each glyph chipped by desperate hands. Now lichen obscures the prayers. Don't mistake it for erosion. That's nature's handwriting, neater and crueler. Ever tried carrying water in a basket? That's Angkor's last rulers, building dams with taxed loyalty. Workers mixed mortar with palm wine to soothe cracked hands. The slurry attracted bats, whose guano ate through the bricks. Smell that. Petrichor rains perfume. Here's the twist. It's an illusion. Your brain remembers moisture. But this scent comes from sun-rotted algae. The land's so parched, even its smells gaslight you. Local myth warns against whistling here. They say it wakes the drought serpent, a 9-headed naga that drank the Mekong in one gulp. Touch the amulet's vendor cell. They're just snake teeth dyed red, but feel how your palm sweats. See those grooves on the sluice gate. Farmers sharpened sickles there as crops failed. Blade marks angle upward, as if slashing at the clouds. Desperation leaves forensic signatures. Archaeologists found child-sized footprints in the reservoir mud. Perfectly preserved, toes splayed like starfish. They radiocarbon date to 1398, the year of empty granaries. Walk beside them. Your modern souls overlap ghosts who never grew into adulthood. Here's a morbid math problem. Angkor needed 3 rice harvests annually to feed 2 million people. Lose 1 crop, tighten belts. Lose 2, beg the gods. Lose 3, well, look what happened to the rat kings. Crouch by the canal's edge. Those aren't pebbles, they're snail shells. Golden apple snails, delicacies when farmed, invasive horrors when they escape. Bad harvests drove farmers to dump them here. Their calcium curves outlasted the empire's bones. Ever notice how disaster smells sweet? Rotting rice ferments into something cloying. Survivors' journals describe drunk elephants rampaging through storerooms, trunks swinging at phantom bees, attracted to the stench. There's the kicker. Angkor's engineers designed spillways to prevent floods, but decades of drought baked the soil to ceramic, unable to absorb sudden rain. Their genius became their requiem. Mother Nature doesn't grade on effort. Modern drills found pollen from rubber trees in sediment layers. Wild ones shouldn't grow here. Quirky theory. Rebellious monks planted them, hoping latex might seal cracks in holy reservoirs. If true, their faith bled white and sticky. Wipe your forehead. That sweat contains the same salt ratio as the Mekong. You're not just a spectator, you're an archive. Every pore pumps ancestral brine. Your shadow stretches across the Badlands. It mirrors the empire's final act, long, distorted, fading into what comes next. Your shadow merges with the night, and suddenly you're clutching a palm leaf scripture. Monks once carried these rolled tight against monsoon rains. No gold leaf here, just words scratched with rat teeth. Theravada Buddhism seeped in like groundwater, no grand temples needed. You'd think switching from god kings to humble piety caused riots. Instead, it happened between rice harvests. Farmers traded bronze Shiva statues for scriptures, melted divine metal into plowshares. One farmer's ledger lists 2 broken Vishnu arms equals 1 scrap hoe. Heaven recycled into earth. That pile of bricks, not leftovers from a temple. Locals repurposed them into fish traps, holy stone now funneling catfish. Archaeologists found 94 Buddha heads crammed inside a single weir. Salvation through aquaculture, apparently. Sniff the air sandalwood and sour rice wine. Monks brewed both. Their monasteries doubled as taverns, serving enlightenment with a side of homemade hooch. Royal edicts raged, but taxing a monk's liquor stash. Even kings feared bad karma. Check this floor mosaic. Peacocks and lotuses, right. Look closer, tesserae replaced with coconut shell shards. Artists ran out of imported stone during the transition. Theravada's austerity meant making do, though that peacock looks suspiciously like a drunken chicken. Here's a fact you won't forget. The last Sanskrit inscription in Angkor dates to 1327. It's a rental receipt for temple land. Priests became landlords as faith shifted. The divine right to charge 3 baskets of rice per acre, apparently. Kings tried adapting badly. Jayavarman IX commissioned a hybrid Buddha Shiva statue. Result looked like a sleep-deprived elephant. Commoners called it the god of confusion and quietly hid it in a granary. Ever seen a monk argue with a carpenter? Scrolls describe furious debates over pagoda roof angles. Too steep, and its worldly ambition. Too flat, and spiritual laziness. Goldilocks theology minus the porridge. Dig up any village hut's foundation. You'll find Hindu statues buried as cornerstones, protective spirits repurposed, like keeping your ex's love letters under the bed for luck. Pragmatism over dogma, the true Cambodian constant. Historians still argue whether Theravada spread via persuasion, or because starving people preferred portable gods. Try worshipping a 10-ton Shiva when you're carrying your house on your back. That weathered pillar, not a border marker, it's a monastic scoreboard, carvings tallying meditation, hours versus rice wine violations. Turns out enlightenment required accountability and debauchery bookkeeping. Squint at these charcoal sketches on a temple's hidden wall. Stick figures hammering a giant Buddha into firewood. Protest art or vandalism. Depends who controlled the ink. Monks weren't saints. Tax exemptions made monasteries fat targets for freeloaders. One 14th century scroll complains of false ascetics demanding alms, then buying silk robes and pet monkeys. The original influencer scams. Touch this lump of corroded metal. Was once a temple bell melted down during a rice shortage. Listen closely. That faint ring, the sound of devotion becoming soup pots. Here's the twist. Theravada's rise left Angkor both emptied and preserved. No more resources spent on cosmic scale temples, just quietly crumbling in the dark. Sometimes abandonment's the kindest epitaph. Your sandal kicks up a palm leaf scrap. It reads, "Desire is suffering, but mangoes are worth it." Theology with a disclaimer, the Khmer Empire's true final words. You wake to smoke, thick and black as funeral incense. Angkor's eastern skyline glows crimson, not dawn, but siege fires. Bronze-tipped arrows hiss overhead like angry serpents. The Cham fleets came upriver at monsoon's peak, warships disguised as rice barges. Taste that metallic tang. Not monsoon rain. It's blood runoff from the royal elephant stables. Survivors' journals describe panicked herds stampeding through flames, howdahs ablaze, mahouts trampled underfoot. One account claims a war elephant drowned itself in the West Barre Reservoir, trumpeting like a broken conch shell. Step over this shattered bas-relief. VI letter 1E63, letter 1E47, U.S. face, lies beside a Cham spearhead, its blade still wedged in stone. Archaeologists found 18 such weapons inside Angkor Thom's gates. Each bears Cham's script cursing Khmer kings and demanding back payment for silk loans. That pile of mossy bricks, not temple rubble. It's a counter-siege wall built in 5 days, wooden stakes reinforced with stolen Buddha statues. Workers mixed mortar using rice glue and monk's ashes. Efficiency over reverence. Listen. Those faint scratches on the gateway, not battle damage. Cham poets carved victory verses into the stone, 23 couplets bragging about stolen temple gold. One line translates, "Your gods sleep in our ship's bellies." Here's the brutal math. In 1177 CE, Cham forces torched 80% of Angkor, their firebombs fueled by Khmer resin stockpiles. The invaders even burned their own ships, a point of no return. Smell that citrusy reek. Fermented snakehead fish paste, the Cham army's field rations. Excavations revealed ceramic jars still sealed with rotting fish, and one soldier's diary complaining about indigestion. His last entry, "Victory tastes like a latrine." Crouch beside this broken sentry tower. See those charred bamboo strips underneath. Defenders tied burning fuses to bats, crude incendiary weapons. Temple records mention 300 bats released, and one panicked colony that circled back to ignite the royal granary. Kings rebuilt taller walls 9 meters thick, studded with stone nagas. Useless, the Cham returned in 1181 with siege towers on floating platforms and a new weapon fireloom. Sticky mud mixed with quicklime and termite resin. It ignited on contact with moat water. Grab this triangular clay piece, not a roof tile. Cham spies used them as message tokens. Press 1 into wet mortar, and symbols appeared. 56 were found along Angkor's aqueducts. Each translates to cut here during the dry moon. Check the carvings on this lintel. Elephants, soldiers, and a grinning monkey holding a Cham helmet. Artists snuck protest art into reconstruction orders. Subtlety, Southeast Asia's oldest survival tactic. That blackened pit, a royal armory turned mass grave. Forensic soil analysis shows arsenic levels 50 times normal defectors poisoned their own comrades' rice sacks. Loyalty's price fluctuated with siege durations. Historians still argue whether Angkor fell due to Cham ingenuity or Khmer engineers hired by rival courts. A Javanese chronicle mentions fire masters paid in emeralds, but proof dissolved in floodwaters. Notice these fused metal blobs. That's melted temple bells mixed with Cham bronze. After the sack, villagers looted both sides' weapons and reforged them into fishing hooks. War recycled into supper again. Dig through this midden heap, ox bones, broken pottery, and a child's wooden top carved with Cham and Khmer script. Kids played sea and defense for generations, complete with rules for aerial bat attacks. The final insult, Cham victors paraded Khmer royalty through Ayutthaya, but forgot one prince. He escaped dressed as a nun hid inside a bronze Buddha statue for 9 days. Breathing through the navel and plotting resurrection, you step on a warped brass plate, its once sharp edges softened by centuries of rain. Press it to your ear. Some swear it whispers, "Next time, build better walls." You inhale lotus perfume until rot sneaks underneath. Palanquin curtains can't mask the truth. Nobles ride through famine on litters padded with rice sacks. Their porters' ribs press through sweat-slick skin like bamboo slats. Crouch here below the tax ledger carved into this palace wall. 13,000 jugs of grain, 5,000 silk bolts, 47 elephant tusks. All due by the next full moon. The engravers got creative, carved a fat rat, nibbling the totals. Subtle. Peel back this moldering parchment, a provincial governor's plea. 3 floods destroyed our fields. Reduce our quota, lest children become bones. The royal reply. A single vermilion stamp pay or face inspection. Inspectors arrived with armed escorts and extra scales. Follow this chalk X on the floor. Beneath these floorboards, 93 turtle shells inscribed with tax records. Officials swapped stone tablets for tortoise carapaces. Easier to bury when auditors came. One reads, 5th year of Suryavarman collected 70 baskets, reported 12. That metallic clatter, not temple bells. Tax officers test silver purity by biting coins. They pocket any leaving tooth marks. Surviving ledgers list dental expenses as the empire's 3rd largest cost. Historians still argue whether corruption caused the collapse or just greased its wheels. Taste this powder careful. It's not spice. Lab tests show its pulverized temple bricks mixed with rice flour. Bakers stretched dwindling supplies until nobles noticed their ritual cakes crumbled during prayers. The punishment: a new tax on sacrilegious dough. Watch your step near that bronze urn. It's a petition box, or was. Peasants dropped appeals inside until someone filled it with scorpions. The rule: reach in barehanded to prove loyalty. 300 dried stingers were found at the bottom. Notice these notches on the gatepost. Each marks a village elder executed for deficit thinking. The charge applied whether they begged for lower taxes or calculated yields too accurately. Efficiency experts became the state's most frequent criminals. That gurgle in the canal: not fish. Irrigation channels doubled as tax evasion routes. Farmers floated garlic baskets downstream to untaxed markets. The new tax commissioner had a solution: catapult flaming tar into the water. Now it's just unemployed fishermen and charred garlic bobbing like cork. Pluck a thread from this moth-eaten tapestry. Gold weave depicts clerks weighing grain, but flip it over. The back shows officials stuffing coins into their own pockets, the weaver's quiet revenge. 5% of Angkor's art hides such subversion, usually in body cavities of holy figures. Smell that vinegar tang. Accountants used fermented tiger prawn paste to erase papyrus records. Over time, the ink faded along with memories of who owed what. Modern scholars need ultraviolet lights and nose plugs to reconstruct the numbers. Drag your finger through this dust. Spectroscopy reveals powdered malachite and bone ash. Appraisers diluted gem shipments with junk until the king ordered all assessors cremated remains added to royal mortar. Serve the empire in death as you failed in life. The ultimate irony: tax laws got stricter as harvests shrank. Missed a payment: your land became crown property. Couldn't pay the land seizure fee: your children became temple debt slaves. Poets called it the season of kissing chains. The elite found it romantic. That buzzing isn't bees. It's flies swarming a scribe's mummified hand, clutching a last scroll. His final entry complains of 18 consecutive auditing nights. Cause of death: the judge ruled laziness-induced exhaustion. Wipe the grime off this brick. Fabric impressions prove nobles stored surplus rice on silk carpets, while weevils ate the peasants' reserves. The weave patterns match those in royal nurseries. Infants napped atop enough grain to feed provinces. Dig through this ash. Charred bamboo strips list 37 methods officials falsified death records, including my favorite, accidental trampling by mythical goose. 300 nobles allegedly got eaten by the same celestial bird. The assassination attempts started predictably. Dissidents baked shrapnel into tax collectors' mooncakes, until the Minister of Revenue commissioned a food taster guild. Their Ivo rye badges bore the motto: sweetness requires sacrifice. Before you judge, peek inside this ledger. A clerk's margin doodles show self-portraits hanged by abacus strings. An addiction to accuracy could unravel the entire system. You brush against mothballed velvet robes in a tax vault, fabric so lush it mocks your calloused palms. Luxury always needs feeding, and hunger gnaws through stone. You trace a finger across stone fissures wider than your palm, each crack a dry riverbed, mocking monsoon memories. Blistered earth stretches where reservoirs once held liquid silver, now just dust ghosts dancing in noon's glare. Your sandals crunch beetle shells, iridescent carcasses, starved of moisture. Pry up this broken tile, peer at the sediment layers beneath: black silt, bone-white clay, orange desert crust. Geologists count them like tree rings, each stripe a year the rains failed. One brutal stretch shows 30 consecutive parchment-thin layers, decades of evaporation without relief. Sniff the air. That's not wood smoke, it's heat-stressed trees releasing terpenes, a desperate chemical scream. Scientists call it forest fever breath. You call it nature's last-ditch spice rack. Crouch by this shattered jar. Its murky residue isn't wine. It's concentrated tamarind pulp mixed with ground snails. Drought rations, or as royal chefs rebranded it, Earth's marrow preserves. 5 copper coins bought a thimbleful, nobles bought it by the amphora. Squint at those distant mounds. Not termite hills, collapsed sluice gates buried under dunes. Engineers built them to last centuries, but baked clay crumbles faster than bureaucracy. Wipe grit from this charcoal sketch on a palm leaf. Some hopeful soul drew clouds fat with rain arrows pointing to empty fields. Flip it over. A child's handwritten plea. If gods need water, why drink ours? That popping sound, not firecrackers. Sun-baked reservoir mud contracting, each snap echoing like a wrist bone breaking. Archaeologists found fish skeletons folded into these cracks, their mouths gaping upward even in death. Scrape a nail across this brick. The pink tint comes from laterite clay dug deeper as topsoil vanished. Workers etched complaints into soft stone. 3 baskets of rice for 10 layers of hell. Foremen added their own notes. Complain again. Get buried in your own ditch. Spot the notches on that acacia tree. Each mark tracks a week without rain, until the blade slipped on the 107th cut. Carbon dating says the carver died mid-groove. Skeleton found, leaning against the trunk. Unroll this reed mat careful. The fibers flake like burnt skin. It's a star map used to predict monsoons, with angry corrections scrawled in margarine. Wrong, liar, stars, Indra sleeps. The state's solution: more statues. Priests erected 4-armed Vishnu idols, facing every reservoir, each thumbless from greedy palms gripping, offering bowls too tight. Wealthy donors got rain vouchers, clay tokens redeemable for celestial deliveries. Unused ones fill a granary turn tomb. Here's the kicker: cores drilled from Angkors. Wells prove the water turned saline. Farmers unknowingly irrigated crops with brine-watched stalks, wither as if cursed. Agronomists whisper of zombie rice, plants that drank salt, yet kept growing, only to poison whoever ate them. Kneel by this child's grave. The tiny femur shows Harris lines, growth, arrest stripes from repeated starvation. Parents buried her with a clay frog amphibian deities being rain's mascots. Frogs outlived the empire, still croaking in flooded quarries tonight. That glint in the dirt, a bureaucrat's bronze rain gauge, calibrated to underestimate droughts by half. Officials used them till the end promotions relied on optimistic measurements. Pluck a seed pod from this extinct orchid. Geneticists tried reviving it. Turns out it only germinated during violent storms. Quiet apocalypses kill more than haywire ones. Dig here. The ash layers laced with melted gold, currency burned during rain summoning rites. Peasants incinerated their last coins. Nobles tossed in gilded lice combs. Prayers rose with the smoke, fell as lukewarm nothing. The cruel twist. El Niño cycles waxed stronger. Pacific currents shifted. Monsoons dodged Cambodia like a debtor. Angkor became collateral damage in a global climate wobble. Hold this pottery shard to your ear. The curve amplifies wind whipping through barren channels. Same sound engineers heard while resealing leaky dams with fig sap and desperation. That sticky residue on the temple steps. Not opium, fermented palm sugar smeared to lure ants. Protein supplements when locusts fled the heat. Food historians found antacid tablets in noble tombs. Turns out eating formic acid daily does wonders for medieval heartburn. See this half-carved lingam. Sculptors abandoned it mid-chisel when the last quarry closed. The tool marks get wilder near the base. Final swings gouged Vishnu's face clean off. Historians still argue whether climate killed Angkor or just tightened the noose the Khmer tied themselves. Monks sure had opinions. One codicil claims the earth opened its mouth because kings fed it too many lies. Sift this dust through your fingers. Pollen analysis says it's mostly grass, not a single rice grain. The siege didn't need armies, just stillness and a sun that forgot mercy. Turn over your palm. Sweat evaporates before forming a droplet. You finally understand why beggars licked shadows and why no one stopped them. You kneel in soil that crackles like old parchment. Your shadow, the only thing thriving in this blistered field. That faint ridge underfoot, not a plow line the spine of a tax collector's ledger fossilized by sun and spite. Inscriptions list 8 bushels owed per acre. Harvests yielded 4. Run your thumb over a rusted sickle blade. The notch near the handle isn't from cutting rice. It's where a soldier tried prying open a tax officer's strongbox. Forensic archaeologists found blood residue matching 3 officials and a very determined lemur. Follow the staggered footprints pressed into dry mud. Not an irrigation ditch, an army's retreat. Bronze spearheads litter the path, reforged into makeshift hoes, that shattered on salted earth. Catch that acrid tang. Centuries haven't diluted the pickled rage in this jar. Inside, fermented fish sauce mixed with copper coins and fingernail clippings. Peasant curses tended to be experiential. Crack open this termite mound. Workers chewed through tax receipts, first, sparing personal prayers carved on palm leaves. Priorities. Brush red dust from a child's slingshot. The uneaten clay pellets mimic rice grains, decoys used to fool tax assessors during inspections. Field mice still hoard them, unaware the famine's over. Squat by this shattered rain gauge. Officials smashed hundreds when villages reported real numbers. One magistrate's diary admits, better empty granaries than empty promises. That charred pit, not a cremation site. Farmers burned jute sandals here, the smoke signaling rebel groups. Carbon dates match the year. Tax records list unseasonal hill fires. Peel apart these laminated reeds, a conscript's illustrated plea to his commander. Stick figures drowning in debt, stick spears, snapping against stick tax collectors. An addendum, returning to plant lentils, or die trying. FEEP, historic payroll ledgers confirm the math. Soldiers earned less per month than a basket of millet cost at market. One garrison's records end mid-sentence. The scribe's ink replaced by the rusty brown of dried blood. Unearth this rotted sack. The stain pattern suggests it held salt, the only currency inflation hadn't devoured. Villagers rubbed it into wounds to sterilize injuries and tax burns. Trace the hieroglyph on this broken shield. It starts as a royal Khmer glyph, for duty morphs mid-carving into hunger. Museum curators keep it in storage, too relatable for public display. That glint in the termite dust, a general's gilded helmet repurposed as a rice steaming pot. The dents suggest it doubled as a dinner gong. Wipe grit from this tax token stamped with a smiling Vishnu. Flip it. The back reads, one heavenly favor redeemable upon collapse. Here's the absurd part. Dig teams found rice stockpiles hidden under armories. Soldiers starved within arm's reach of food they guarded for absent nobles. One skeleton's hand rests on a crate, fingernail scratches, spelling why in warehouse dust. Farmers got creative, seeds smuggled in bamboo tubes. Harvests reported as ghost yields taxable only in the afterlife. A tax clerk's complaint survives. Collecting from corpses would have been easier. Sift through ash layers here. Someone burned silk, tax banners, to cook stolen barley. The soot contains traces of jasmine. Officials demanded perfumed protests at the end. Spot the groove in that well's rim. Ropes cut through stone as hungry crowds hauled up mud. 28 skeletons crowd the bottom, hands clasped around an empty bucket. The breaking point came when monks started taxing prayers. Donation bowls bore new inscriptions. 1 copper per ohm, bulk discounts available. But here's the kicker. Tree ring data shows rainfall actually improved the year the army disbanded. The earth regrew what the empire couldn't replant. Roots cracking tax vaults open like piñatas. Historians still argue whether the levy system failed or succeeded too well. Rebellion spread slower than bureaucracy. Crop reports for dead villages arrived stamped paid in full. Pluck this weed sprouting through a tax collector's skull. Its pollen matches strains from Siamese rice paddies. Smuggled seeds outliving the smugglers. Your canteen sloshes as you stand, obscene sound here. Rebels once shook empty vessels at passing officials. The clang of hollow mocking hollow turn over a shard of that broken sickle. The reflection shows your face warped in its curve, same as the debtors who last gripped it. The sickle's warped reflection melts as you turn, your face becoming the river's silvered skin, where cracked fields end water whispers. Young barks of hope. You're hip deep in the Mekong's new promises, where silt tastes like second chances. Pluck a lotus stem floating past, its roots grip a shard of royal pottery, a wine cup from Angkor's last banquet. Faint lipstick stains linger, dragon fruit red. Palace gossip claimed the queen poisoned her cupbearer with it. Turns out the dye contained lead. A noblewoman's beauty regime killed faster than any assassin. Wade toward that half-sunken pillar. The carvings change mid-spiral lotus motifs, devolving into shipping invoices. Priests carved prayers here, merchants etched toll rates over them. Devotion eroded faster than sandstone. Scoop sediment from the riverbed. Your palm fills with fish scales and glass beads, trade goods from Ayutthaya merchants. Scholars found Siamese shipping logs, boasting how fast Khmer gold turned into Thai temple roofs. One entry mocks. Their gods moved downstream faster than their barges. There's the kicker. While nobles fled south, their ghost fleet kept sailing. An entire armada of unmanned rice boats circled to lay sap for decades. Crews long gone. Fishermen still report seeing their silhouettes at dusk, masts creaking with cobwebs. Step onto spongy land where Phnom Penh's first dock rots. The planks were numbered for easy repairs, a bureaucrat's final joke. Ledgers show half the wood sank, along with the accountant who signed for it. Peel back moss from this post. Tax exemptions for river traders are carved here, crossed out with chisel marks saying HAH in Old Khmer. Archaeologists debate whether it's vandalism or an official's stress relief hobby. Follow the drag marks in the clay, not cattle trails, royal palanquin tracks abandoned mid-evacuation. The imprints deepen near the river, as if the litter bearers finally dropped their load and swam. Inside one indentation, a single jade hairpin shaped like a drowning swan. Sniff the air. That's not marsh gas. It's fermented politics. When the court relocated, they transported 800 jars of ceremonial honey wine. Modern chemists found traces in buried jars. Half were filled with ditch water and beetle juice. Even in retreat, someone's skimming the royal budget. Unwrap this sodden palm leaf manuscript. The ink's blurred except for one phrase. Third son's ransom, 2 ox carts of ginger, and 1 pregnant goat. Historians still argue whether it's a kidnap note or an early recipe for exile. Kneel by the water's edge. Your reflection splits into 3 ripples, mimicking the triple towers of Angkor Wat. A fish nibbles your distorted spire, nature's gentle mockery of human grandeur. Dig through this midden heap. Alligator bones outnumber chicken. River nomads ate better than farmers in those days. Toss aside a turtle shell. Spot numerals scratched inside. Probable gambling debt tallies or a child's math practice. Either way, someone died owing 13,000 something. That submerged glint isn't treasure. It's a gong mallet welded to a tax collector's chain. Workers dredging the port found 17, all within sight of the new palace. Coincidence? The king's first decree banned metal detectors. Cup your ears. Hear that hollow knock. Woodpeckers, they've claimed the abandoned watchtowers. They're drilling, echoing the shipwrights who built this city. Progress sounds the same, just cheaper subcontractors. Find the broken lock in the reeds, its keyholes stuffed with opium resin and temple gold leaf. Guards stationed here faced a choice: get bribed or get creative. Now the wild part: 3 elephant skeletons surfaced during dredging, their chains still linked, tusks sawed off to pay smugglers. Ring a bell. Same pachyderms once pulled Angkor's victory parades. Their keepers' journals mention retirement plans involving aquatic endeavors. Watch fireflies mimic the long-dead lanterns of floating markets. Vendors here once sold lotus root and hopelessness, the latter moving faster. Modern tours skip that detail. Kick a pebble into the current. It skips 7 times, same as the number of kings who ruled from here before remembering they hated boats. Their palaces now host particularly damp rats. That algae blob. Peasant superstition says it's the ghost of a royal chef who drowned while chasing a runaway dinner float. Dive teams found his soup ladle, still clutched around a catfish's skeleton. Priorities. Check your boots. River mud from Angkor clings to the soles, iron-rich and stubborn as nostalgia. Scientists can trace which village you walked through by the dirt's despair content. This batch, definitely a tax protest site. Spot the notch in that dock post. Rebels used it to measure rising waters during monsoon and revolutionary morale. The highest mark reads swim or swing in colloquial Khmer poetry in the face of drowning. There's the rub. While Angkor's reservoirs turned to dust, this swampy backwater became an empire. The jungle took 9 centuries to reclaim temples. Bureaucrats needed 9 months to abandon them. Progress. Your paddle dips into the water, stirring up muck. That's equal parts chaos and reinvention. The current licks a crumbling stupa. On shore, its bricks dissolving into tomorrow's silt. Your fingers brush a temple wall. Moss bleeds green shadows across your skin. Above, a strangler figs roots drip monsoon rain. Each drop erodes lotus carvings into Rorschach blobs. Nature's doing abstract art with a 9th century head start. Step over a toppled lintel. Ants pour from its cracks. They've farmed fungus here since kings wore gold. Their tiny mounds mimic abandoned temple spires, right down to the lichen decor. The jungle's a plagiarist with better contractors. Squint at those crumbling steps. What once took 10 men to lift now cradles a civet's nest. Archaeologists found litters of kittens here wrapped in silk scraps. Turns out palace tapestries make killer bedding. The mother's skeleton showed signs of gout. Too much stolen royal honeycake. Crouch by a shattered urn. Its shards glint with mica, but the real treasure's underneath. A clay tablet lists rations for gatekeepers of the 7th tier. Last entry, paid in crickets and ennui. Workers' unions would have had a field day. Track those green streaks on the ceiling. Not mold, oxidized copper from a melted down war chariot. Someone turned victory monuments into plumbing fixtures. Historians still argue whether it was thrift or poetic justice for a warmongering regime. Touch the notch in this pillar. Baboons did that their canines sharpening against sacred stone. Primatologists note troop leaders still posture here. Dominance displays where generals once kowtowed. The hierarchy's unchanged, just swap epaulets for fleas. Watch your head. That dangling vine isn't foliage. It's a python digesting a rice field rat. The stone it coils around. A plinth for Shiva's 3rd arm, now hosting an all-you-can-eat buffet. The divine and the digestive, closer than you'd think. Sniff the air, decaying teak and wet monkey fur, with a top note of betrayal. Records show monks buried 30 tons of rancid temple butter during the evacuation. Ground-penetrating radar found it last year, still reeking through 7 meters of soil. Kick aside a termite mound. Its soil bubbles with mercury, remnants of a cosmetic workshop. Nobles slathered their faces in toxic glitter, then wondered why their portraits looked tired. Vanity's a slow suicide with great contouring. Find the handprint in this fresco, too small for a laborer. Some kid's pigment-smudged rebellion. Infrared scans revealed dozens more hidden under layers of official propaganda. Turns out the empire's best graffiti artists were under 4 feet tall. Hear that gurgle, the central reservoirs now a crocodile nursery. Females nest in cracked sluice gates, their eggs warmed by residual heat from collapsed kilns. Industrial decline meets reproductive hustle, real fixer-upper potential here. Pluck a leaf from that sapling. Its veins mirror the city's old canal maps, evolution doing urban planning. Scientists grafted modern fig branches onto ancient roots last year. They bore fruit shaped like temple bells. Coincidence? The jury's out, but locals won't eat them. Spot the scorch marks on that altar, not ceremonial fires, lightning strikes. Storm counts spiked as deforestation changed wind patterns. Priests probably spun it as heavenly wrath, conveniently ignoring their role in selling off the sacred cedars. Wipe sweat from your neck. Same moisture that rotted royal archives now feeds resurrection ferns. They unfurl from every crevice, breathing life into dead spaces. Angkor's greatest lesson: resilience doesn't care who owns the deed. Step into what was a treasury. The vaulted ceiling now drips with bat guano, 19 species worth. Conservationists tried installing nets. The bats just laughed and redecorated with their poop. Take that, cultural preservation. Sidestep a sinking flagstone. Underneath, ceramic pipes from the old sewage system. They're clogged with jade bribes and temple offering coins. Turns out flushing your sins downstream is literally easier than accountable governance. Grab that vine to steady yourself. Bad call. It's a thorny rattan worshipped as the king's whip in old scripts. Local legend says touching it curses you with bureaucratic nightmares. Enjoy tonight's dream about quadruplicate tax forms. There's the kicker: centuries of divine kingship erased by a squirrel's nut stash. Excavations found acorns wedged into sacred lingams. A rodent's middle finger to phallic symbolism. Forget conquering armies. The real revolution had bushy tails and trust issues. Your boot crunches a terracotta fragment. Turn it over, glazed eyes stare up a face from a roof ornament. 5 more lie nearby in a rough circle, kids using demon effigies as makeshift hopscotch markers. Archaeologists found chalk outlines and a petrified mango pit treasure. Lean against a wall. It exhales powdered sandstone. Engineers warn the whole complex could crumble like a smashed sugar cube. Stabilization efforts continue. But how do you save a corpse mid-decomposition? Spot the shadow darting through pillars. Not a ghost, a macaque clutching a gilded mirror shard. It bares teeth at its reflection, heir to the throne of narcissism. The more things change, the macaque's mirror fragment catches orange light, a flicker that isn't sunset. Turn toward the jungle's edge, lanterns bob like drunken fireflies. Portuguese sailors swore they'd found Atlantis. Their maps labeled it city of the heathen king's tomb. Locals called it Pre-Co Sacred Bull, an inside joke they never explained. Breathe in gunpowder residue and sour wine. Diogo Ducato's 1585 account describes stupendous edifices abandoned to apes. He failed to mention his crew stole a 5-ton Buddha head. They abandoned it 2 miles downstream. Karma's a hernia-inducing prankster. Kick aside a rusted helmet. Not Khmer, 16th century Portuguese cabaset. Soldiers used temple stones to mend their ship's Angkor Wat, became a quarry with better PR. Archaeologists found a carrack's bell in a nearby rice paddy, engraved with the name Santa Ignora. Fitting. Squint at graffiti on a half-collapsed wall. Faint Latin script claims Gaspar ate here 1599. Gaspar was a blacksmith's apprentice turned deserter, his diary surfaces in Lisbon antique shops every few decades. Last entry. God forgot this place, but the mosquitoes didn't. Step over a shattered amphora. It once held bagaço, Portuguese firewater locals called ghost piss. Traders swapped it for sapphires until someone realized gem dealers drank tap water instead. Europe's first documented Ponzi scheme, pyramid-shaped, obviously. Spot the notch in that pillar. A lantern hook. Explorers needed both hands to sketch the ruins and swat malarial mosquitoes. Their drawings look suspiciously like Roman aqueducts. Wishful thinking with a side of plagiarism. Crouch by a mildew-stained journal page. Faded ink whines about monkeys throwing excrement at God's chosen. The author, Father Manuel de Cruz. His mission to convert stone-worshipping savages ended when he slipped on a civet turd, broke his sacramental wine flask. Divine comedy writes itself. Run your thumb over bullet scars on a bas-relief. Conquistadors test-fired muskets at the walls, measuring penetration depth. Modern ballistics matched the pits to a ship's armory lost in a 1613 typhoon. Turns out Karma's also a forensic accountant. Follow those char marks on the ceiling. Not ancient ceremonies, sailors roasting stolen peacocks over stolen temple braziers. Tax records show Lisbon's royal court received 6 tropical fowl in 1602, along with a complaint about inedible glittery meat. Wade through knee-deep ferns, your foot strikes something metallic, a navigational astrolabe corroded into abstract art. Scholars weep over its missing engravings, but the sailor who dropped it, probably executed for losing the guild's deposit. Peel back moss from a stone ledger. It lists temple assets, 532,466 gems, 69 elephants, 3 golden chamber pots. Portuguese inventory notes beside it, 1 dented spoon, very solemn. Colonialism's brain on cinnamon fumes. Gag at the stench wafting from a nearby pit. Europeans turned a rainwater cistern into a latrine. Archaeologists call it the cultural exchange layer. Findings include olive pits, dysentery parasites, and a surprisingly intact love poem to someone named Katarina. Tug a vine. It unravels into a rusted chain. Slave traders tethered captives here between sails. Ground scans show 28 skeletons still wearing menorah pendants, remnants of a Jewish convoy betrayed by their guides. The Khmer Rouge reused the chains in the 1970s. Histories, a gutless recycler. Trip on a mossy hemisphere. It rolls, revealing itself as a Portuguese cannonball, still lodged in a rhizome-covered pillar. X-rays show it's packed with temple gold. A soldier's retirement plan, foiled by a banyan's embrace. Pluck a shard of Murano glass from the soil. Traders carried Venetian luxuries to impress primitive chiefs. Chiefs used them as fishing sinkers. Glass beads now stud the riverbed like aquatic constellations. Status symbols make terrible anchovies. Spot the lichen-crusted ledger underfoot. Port records list 121 casks of sacred temple wine shipped to Goa. Modern chemists analyzed residue. It was just fermented tamarind paste, the ultimate holy placebo. Kneel beside a desecrated altar, carved palm, prince frame, a Catholic cross gouged into the stone. Half-hearted conversion meets performative vandalism. Historians still argue whether it's sacrilege or a homesick sailor's attempt at stained glass. Taste iron on the breeze, decaying weaponry buried by monsoon floods. Metal detectors ping daily. Tourists keep mistaking armor fragments for ancient Khmer coins. A German backpacker sued in 2017. Turns out his treasure was a Portuguese stirrup. Catch movement in the undergrowth, not a mongoose. A feral goat descended from ship's provisions. Its collar bell tinkles, and a minor note echoing through roofless halls. The first European music Angkor heard, and possibly the worst. There's the punchline. Europeans gasped at undiscovered ruins, while farmers tended rice fields 5 miles west. Locals knew. Locals always knew. But why guard broken stones when the river offers fresh fish and the sweet lie of forgetting? Your sandal sinks into mud by the riverbank. The Mekong's brown swirls carrying more than silt tonight. Upstream, Ayathea's war barges cut the current like bronze knives. Their sails bear the crimson Garuda, a mythological bird hungry for gold and compliant throats. Feel that vibration underfoot. Not distant thunder, elephant battalions stomping birch trees into pulp. Local guides whisper about ghost tusks haunting these jungles. Turns out they're just abandoned Siamese armor. Historians still argue whether the Khmer's last king fled or got trampled in a stampede of his own panic. Duck behind a crumbling wall. Arrow slits frame a surreal sight, ox carts stacked with gilded Buddhas rolling toward invaders. Tribute or temple heist. Royal scribes called it diplomatic redistribution. The caravans always returned lighter, and the Siamese kept coming. Inhale lotus pollen, undercut with sweat. Soldiers once smeared fermented shrimp paste on arrows. Biological warfare before microscopes. Archaeologists found Siamese skeletons with spice jar shards in their pockets. Gourmet fighters to the bitter end. Step over a mossy chain. It once anchored a Khmer river fort, now wrapped around a drowned Siamese cannon. Modern divers pulled up 12 Chang elephant bells, each engraved with taunts. Your king owes me 3 wives and a parrot, classic 15th century trolling. Spot the notch in that tamarind tree. Siamese scouts carved tally marks as they advanced, 1 stroke per surrendered village. By 1431, the bark ran out of space, ambition's earliest spreadsheet. Kick a half-buried token, stamped with Ayathea's lotus symbol. It promised safe passage for merchants. Wise traders melted them into fishhooks, better returns, and fewer stab wounds. Wipe steam from your temple, the air's thick with monsoon humidity and desperate bartering. Envoys offered vanilla pods, ivory combs, even bottled monsoon wind. The Siamese preferred their tribute liquid and human-shaped. Crouch beside fractured pottery. These weren't ceremonial urns. They held last-ditch bribes of cardamom and ginger. Carbon-dated pepper flakes, match variety, still grown in Chiang Mai, evidence of history's most aromatic shakedown. Gag at the reek of rotting mangosteens. Siege camps bred flies and innovation. Khmer engineers jury-rigged trebuchets to fling beehives, an early case of bringing the buzz to your enemy. Tug a vine. It snaps, revealing a stone chest filled with finger bones, each tagged with bamboo slips. Debt paid. Accountants never let a little genocide disrupt their filing systems. Stumble upon a mosaic's remains. Emerald tiles depict Angkor's triumphs. Note the crude ochre overlay. A Siamese commander redrawing borders with his wife's nail polish. Some empires fall to swords, others to interior design wars. Spot the solitary coconut shell. Traces of opium resin cling to its curves. Scholars debate if it fueled Khmer negotiators or Siamese accountants. Either way, someone signed bad treaties with dragon-shaped ink blots. Follow the cicada drone to a sandstone slab. Incised numbers show rice reserves dwindling from 18,000 bushels to please clap. Tax records shouldn't double as tragic poetry. Yank a plaque from the muck. It memorializes a golden age of cooperation, dated 3 weeks before Ayathea's final invasion. Delusion's the last spice to abandon a sinking empire. Taste beetle nut bitterness on the breeze, a noble's last vice as he drafted hollow treaties. The Siamese preferred their promises aged and served with a side of surrendered children. Tripping over a buried drum, its oxhide head still bears a dent from royal fury. Musicology, students proved it plays a perfect B-flat. The same note elephants make when unimpressed. Glimpse sparks through the trees, not enemy torches. A blacksmith reforging crowns into shackles. Every defeated king becomes a metalsmith, eventually. Alchemy's cruelest joke. There's the kicker, those marble steps to nowhere. Khmer architects built them in 1448 for a victory parade that never came. Now ants march triumphant, carrying crumbs of what we arrogantly called eternity. The ants keep marching, their crumb caravan winding past your feet. You're ankle deep in cracked canal, mud now. The empire's veins turned to scars. Laborers once dug here night and day, shovels biting deeper to outrace the Mekong's retreat. Notice the bamboo scaffolds. They're not holding up walls, they're propping up desperation. Engineers gambled that steeper slopes would funnel water uphill, a geographic Hail Mary. Instead, the monsoon poured backward, sucking silt into the empire's heart. Step over a trampled ledger. Columns tally 6,000 diggers and 300 elephant buckets. The margin reads, "If Vishnu wills it, mud becomes gold." Spoiler, Vishnu preferred cash. Kneel by a rusted sluice gate. Finger-width grooves mar its surface, not erosion. Workers sharpened knives here between shifts, and allegedly diced river crabs for morale-boosting soup. Historians found clam fossils in foremen's quarters. Turns out the rank and file ate regret. Crush a dried beetle underfoot. Its iridescent shell matches amulets from Angkor's water temple priests released them as blessed engineers. Modern entomologists call them Scarabaeidae hydrofucus, not a technical term, but accurate. Spot the silt angel imprint. Some exhausted digger face planted here in 1422. Then flipped tradition the bird. Foremen called it sedimentary heresy, but let the imprint stay. God's judge, mud preserves. Grab that roped coconut floating by. It's no buoy, bamboo fibers inside unravel a darker tale. Tax collectors stuffed receipts into hollow fruit, then tossed them downstream to rot. Carbon-dated pulp reveals 9 layers of embezzlement, each fraud stickier than the last. Wince at the stench. That's not just drying mud. It's millennia of mango pits, fish guts, and bureaucratic failure fermenting in tropical heat. Archaeologists pulled a 2-foot hairball from this bendy possible evidence of the world's first stressed-out project manager. Kick a broken pulley. Chinese traders sold these as dragon-tested, though the dragons were suspiciously seam-reap chicken-sized. Workers quipped that every lift required prayer and a chiropractor. Tripping over a bone necklace. Don't adjust your glasses. Those are ferret vertebrae. Canal diggers wore them against evil spirits, though ferrets mainly protect against poor life choices. Dig your nail into the bank. Layers of clay alternate with rice chaff. The empire's last-ditch attempt to trap moisture. It worked for mosquitoes. Malaria rates spiked faster than royal debts. Crouch by a child's handprint fossilized in muck. The ring finger snapped off. Possibly a teenage work accident during conscription flea attempts. Forensic analysis found lychee pulp under the nails. Snack-first priorities endure across centuries. Lick cracked lips. That briny tang isn't sweat, it's phantom salinity from the failed freshwater bid. Engineers drank canal drafts to test progress, then spent weeks worshipping porcelain altars. Peel bark off a stained totem. Carved eels swim upward, an auspicious symbol. Someone later etched Squidward doodles, and the words "dig deeper, idiots." Anonymous vandalisms, the true universal language. Unearth a bamboo tube sealed with wax. Inside, a map showing canals leading to Mount Meru's secret backdoor. Turn it over. There's a doodle of a king mooning the artist. Ambition and pettiness share the same quill. Hear that gurgle, the canals breathing its death rattle, water retreating toward the Mekong like a jilted lover. Engineers never grasped the river's golden rule. What flows away never flows back. Step on a warped bronze plaque. Behold, our waterways conquer nature herself. The date: 3 days before upstream villages reported mysterious salt tongues killing crops. Hubris flavored with sodium chloride. Pluck a lily pad bigger than your head. Geneticists say this mutant strain evolved in the brackish canals, nature's middle finger to hydraulic hubris. Local teens still smoke its roots for trippy visions of drier times. There, the fatal flaw. Workers lied about depth markers to skip shifts, bribing inspectors with tamarind candies. Core samples prove the last canals were 7 feet shallower than logged. Every empire collapses first in its paperwork. Sink to your knees. Your shadow pools in a footprint left by the chief engineer. His sandal size suggests chronic edema. They say he took up kite flying in retirement until a downdraft planted him in a lotus pond. Poetic justice thrives in soggy soil. Wipe your brow. Salt crystallizes on your skin, the earth's own tangy receipt for unchecked ambition. Historians still debate whether these canals failed from bad angles, or because the Mekong simply grew bored of human nonsense. One truth remains in the crumbling banks. Sometimes digging deeper just hurries the flood. The ground quakes, but it's no earthquake. A bull elephant trumpets through the haze, his once gilded howdah dragging through ash. Royal herds once armored in gold leaf now forage for wild bananas. Their mahouts 6 feet under, or riding with rebel gangs. You sidestep a toppled howdah frame, its lacquer depicting lotus battles flaking into mud. Celestial elephants pulled the sun across temple murals. These rogues just want your lunch. Pick up a snapped chain. Gold links alternate with human molars, mahouts, teeth filed into loyalty keys for trunk locks. Dental records suggest elephants preferred carrots to symbolism. Spot the sugarcane husks. They're not snacks. Rebels bribed starving herds with sweets to raid royal granaries. A trunk-to-hand revolution. One tactical report mentions elephants dunking tax collectors in irrigation ditches. Ancient karma with a side of dunking. Kick a hollowed-out coconut. It's no drinking vessel. Mahouts hid maps in these during the Siamese raids. One reads, "Follow the elephant shit to freshwater." Spoiler, they mostly led to more shit. Pluck a silver bell from the muck, engraved with a queen's initials. Recent X-rays revealed fermented mango pits inside. Turns out bored nobles fed their pachyderms boozy chew toys. Wince at that sulfur stench. It's not swamp gas. Abandoned war elephants developed a taste for rotten eggs. Their farts could clear market squares faster than royal decrees. Trip over a rib cage. The pelvis shows spear marks, but the skull's pristine. Archaeologists debate whether this was a battle casualty or the world's first recorded elephant parking dispute. Grab that vine. It's not a vine. Woven horsehair reins dangle from a branch, still knotted in a mahout's final grip. tree cores prove he hung here since 1431. His ghost reportedly yells at tourists for bad sunscreen choices. Crouch by a footprint deeper than your arm. This bull's name was in Dravarman's thunder, according to dung analysis. His last meal, palace tapestries and regret. Unwrap bark parchment from a broken tusk. It's a love letter to a female keeper, complete with pressed orchid and elephant trunk smooch mark. The curator who translated it needed 3 whiskeys. Step over fly-swarmed silk. Royal banners made perfect elephant napkins. Dragons wiped with trunk snot. Account scrolls list 20 rolls of sacred cloth as military casualties. Spot the chipped toenail, size of a dinner plate. Herdsman manuals warned against clipping without chanting. But this one's edged in pyrite flecks. Turns out pedicures doubled as tribute smuggling. Avoid the tangled mass of chains. That's a royal disentangler's skeleton. His job was separating bickering elephants. Cause of death, crushed pelvis. Job satisfaction. Historical records show high turnover. Dig up a moldy rice ball. Fingerprints in the starch match a handprint from Section 11's lychee thief. Snack saboteurs transcend centuries. Modern food trucks near Angkor sell rebel rice balls, coincidentally delayed by health inspections. Peel a blister from gripping a howdah spike. The wealthy upholstered seats with pangolin scales, itchy for humans, cozy for termites. Estate inventories list 16 cushions lost to insect insurgents. Trip on a rusted bell collar. Inscriptions promise endless obedience. Scratches below add, unless bamboo's in bloom. Turns out flowering bamboo drives elephants into ecstatic frenzy. A fact Mahouts forgot to mention. Pluck a blue-tipped feather. Hornbills nested in abandoned howdahs. Their droppings dyed elephant hides indigo. Peasants mistook them for roaming temples and bowed to the wrong gods. Unroll a cracked leather scroll. Diagrams show elephants trained to kick siege ladders, but marginal doodles reveal they mostly kicked tax collectors. Poetic justice has 4 legs and a trunk. There, the rebellion's smoking gun, a stone tablet, lists 18 elephants missing. Archaeologists found their tracks leading to Siam. Coins from Ayat Thea glittered in the dung piles. Turns out pachyderms understood border economics better than kings. Gag on the ammonia tang. Elephant urine preserved these wall carvings better than any varnish. A golden age literally pissed into history. Spot the notch in that tree. Rebel Mahouts sharpened machetes there, but also carved dice. Excavators found gambling tokens labeled Betray the King on one side of free beer on the other. Step into a mud sinkhole. Your leg brushes something smooth, a child's sandal wedged in a hoofprint. Size matches the lychee thief, and his prints trail toward the rebels' last stronghold. Hear that distant rumble. Not thunder, a grandmother elephant leads her herd to a dried-up reservoir. She remembers the old irrigation chants. and trumpets them into the uncaring wind. Historians still argue whether the last mahouts unchained their beasts out of mercy, or just wanted an alibi while looting the armory. The elephants, for their part, seem perfectly happy ignoring us all. One truth lingers in the trampled grass. You can command 1,000 giants, but never their loyalty. Your boots crunch across mosaic shards, each step scattering celestial dancers' smiles. Monks still burn sandalwood where 7-headed Naga statues lie headless, their ash mixing with spray paint tags. Smell that vinegary tang. It's not jungle rot. Pilgrims soak rags in fermented tamarind to polish stolen Buddhas. A Swiss collector's living room holds a cleaned Vishnu, his third eye scrubbed into a sleep-deprived squint. Brush lichen off a broken pediment. The carvings show monks weighing rice against temple gold. Modern laser scans reveal chisel marks beneath a thief's X where emeralds once gleamed. Pick up a half-melted candle. The wax holds fingerprints matching artifacts in the Louvre's vaults. Turns out 19th century looters used votive offerings to pack statue heads, piety as packing peanuts. Squint at that shadowy alcove. Not a shrine, a smuggler's drop point. Last month, rangers found Renaissance-era Venetian coins here. An Italian tomb, raiders' down payment, gone moldy. Unfold a leaf-wrapped bundle. Inside, rusted drill bits and a 1992 Pepsi can. The label bears a scrawled map to Angkor's golden toilet seat, still undiscovered despite 3 misguided expeditions. Watch your head. Bats flee a looted alcove where Indra's stone elephant once stood. Its marble trunk surfaced in a Las Vegas pool, repurposed as a champagne slide. Kneel beside an empty offering bowl. Forensic wax analysis traces 12 food eras from 13th century coconut milk to 2003 Red Bull. Devotion's menu adapted with the centuries. Dig a fingernail into cracked stucco. Gold leaf flakes stick to your skin. 18th century thieves missed the undercoat. Their ledgers whined about false, gilded walls, hindering profit margins. Spot the child's handprint in the mortar, carbon dated to the 1600s, same age as temple records of footpad pilgrims stealing roof tiles. Turns out kids hustled relics for carnival prizes. Tug a vined snaps, revealing a Portuguese musket ball wedged in Shiva's third hand. Ballistics match a 1587 ship, manifest bragging about acquiring Southeast Asian artifacts through very persuasive negotiations. Wipe sweat off a bas-relief. Your palm comes away pink. Minerals from French conservators. Botched 1930s cleaning mix. They tried lemon juice, accidentally inventing corrosive vandalism. Peel back moss near a drainage channel. Faint scratches tally stolen statues. Hash marks cross out Angkorian numerals. Someone kept score and owed debts. Gag on sudden incense smoke. A novice monk fans flames while texting, his Samsung reflected in Avalokiteshvara's missing eyes. Offerings today: jasmine garlands and a Bluetooth speaker chanting auto-tuned mantras. Step over a toppled lingam. Victorian travelogues called these obscene totems, then stole them as paperweights. The British Museum's cafe uses one to prop open a fire exit. Catch that glint in the dirt: a Khmer Rouge bullet casing, fired at a CIA operative mapping temples for UNESCO. Cold War geopolitics conducted via architectural graffiti. Unroll a waterlogged scroll. It's not scripture, a 1713 shopping list for grave robbers. Item 4. Strong ropes for pulling noses off giant faces. Tourism whittles, thievery escalates. Pocket a blue glass bead. Traders stockpiled these to replace stolen sapphires in goddess statues. The original gems now glow in a Dubai Sheik's aquarium, lighting up confused clownfish. Dodge a falling roof tile. It's not neglect. A macaque hurls debris at suspected tomb raiders. Primates learned from watching archaeologists and now practice freelance heritage patrol. Spot the rusted bike chain. Post-Khmer Rouge squatters rigged it to lower kids into looters' tunnels. Their descendants now sell authentic excavations on Etsy, dirt included. Brush red dust off your sleeve. It's not soil, crushed saffron from monks' robes worn threadbare by bowing. Faith leaves residue, even when gods go condo shopping overseas. Kick a pewter flask. Engraved initials match a 1920s French conservator fired for drinking Angkor's sacred water. Toxicology reports found rice wine and traces of hallucinogenic temple mold. There, the ultimate theft. A brick pried from Suryavarman's tomb bears a barcode sticker. Auction records show it's heading to a soul-smart toilet showroom, infusing luxury with spiritual flow. Historians still argue whether relic trafficking preserved Khmer culture or pickled it in colonial kitsch. The stone apsaras don't care. They keep dancing on black market coffee tables. Listen, the wind drags a plastic bag across lichen-striped stones. You almost mistake it for monks' robes until it snags on a fence built to keep out believers. Footsteps echo ahead, but it's just a hen clucking through a hole in Indrani's cracked breastplate. Even chickens peck empire to dust. Moonlight pools in the cracked courtyard where envoys once practiced kowtows. You kneel, palms pressing dust that once clung to Ming dynasty silks. Those embroidered phoenixes now line humidity-controlled vaults in Kuala Lumpur. Auction catalogs call them investment-grade textiles. A cracked inkstone glints under your flashlight. 16th century Chinese records confirm Angkor's diplomats sent 7 missions to Beijing, each bearing gilded coconuts. Emperors reciprocated with bolts of brocade and 0 troops. Historians still argue whether the Khmer knew their pleas were doomed, or if theater mattered more than results. Taste that metallic tang. Monsoon runoff seeping through lead-lined diplomatic pouches. Half a melted wax seal clings to a 1417 scroll, to the King of Cambodia, smudged into King of Pumpernickel by a tipsy scribe. Brush aside centipede husks in a lacquer chest. Inside, 9 jade belt plaques and a monkey's mummified tail. Forensic botanists identified betel nut stains, turns out simian tax collectors once enforced fruit levies on mango groves. Unfold rice paper, thin as cobwebs. It's not a treaty, a Beyonce lyric scratched in Khmer script by a bored translator. Diplomatic immunity covered karaoke nights and poor taste. Squint at wall carvings near the privy. Those aren't battle plans. They're wine stains from Ayathea's envoys, celebrating another lopsided trade deal. Their secret weapon. Rice whiskey stronger than Khmer resolve. Step over a shattered teacup. Porcelain shards match a Ming shipwreck off Borneo. Dendrochronology proves the crate floated 14 years before washing ashore. Even China's garbage outlasted Angkor's diplomacy. Scrape lichen off a stone guest book. Nobles from Champa, Java, and Bengal signed their names, alongside doodles of elephants vomiting rainbows. Ambassadors, then as now, lacked supervision. Find a corroded bronze bell. Strike it. The dull clunk echoes a 1431 Siamese account of Khmer envoys begging for help. Bangkok's chronicles note the bell's tone resembled a goat choking on a betel nut. Peel apart mildewed palm leaves. Inventory lists 23 diplomatic gifts for the Sultanate of Malacca, including trained macaques in feathered hats. Shipping manifests confirm 3 escaped. Started a feral royal court in Sumatran treetops. Watch for vipers near that mossy trunk. Inside lies Java's counteroffer to Angkor's alliance request, a single onyx dildo wrapped in leech skins. Psychotropic residue suggests it wasn't entirely symbolic. Unearth a celadon teacup brimming with soil. DNA tests found saliva from 8 distinct emperors. Turns out the ceremony of shared drink involved serious backwash. Dental plaque reveals Ming rulers had gingivitis and a love of fermented durian. Decipher graffiti on a drainage pipe. Chiseled Tamil curses target Khmer negotiators. May your rice turn to maggots. Grooves into your sister's eyebrows look like caterpillars. Cross-cultural insults lack nuance. Brush red dust off a terracotta tablet. Cuneiform receipts show envoys paid local girls to teach them Javanese love songs, the empire's final love ballad. Her smile outshines our collapsing dam. Trip on a granite doorstop. It's a chipped Ming dynasty seal affirming Suryavarman II's divine right to purchase Chinese fireworks at bulk rates. Priorities shift when cannons outpace carvings. Catch that glint in the rafters. A brass spy mirror used by Khmer agents to watch Siamese envoys bathe. Blackmail attempts failed turns. Out Bangkok's diplomats had exhibitionist tendencies. Pry open a rusted strongbox. Inside, Dutch tulip bulbs traded for Angkor's sacred soil. Speculators hoped jungle dirt would grow black orchids. Instead, sprouted invasive chili plants. Lift a warped lyre string. Pluck it, the off-key twang matches Siamese court transcripts, mocking Khmer musicians. One advisor quipped, their ballads could wilt rice. Unroll a moth-eaten banner. Faded dragons clutch a Khmer plea. Send artisans skilled in fortifications. Beijing sent landscapers specializing in ornamental moats. Wipe peat moss off a stone ledger. Columns tally silks. Received versus soldiers requested. Final entry, 4,000 bolts, 0 spears. Maybe try Hinduism. There, under fungal stains on a teak screen. A Java envoy's doodle predicting Angkor's fall, complete with cartoonish explosion noises. Incense smoke coils where laughing diplomats sealed an empire's fate. Yellowed X-ray film reveals the truth. Diplomatic scrolls were lined with Vietnamese mulberry paper. Rivals knew the Khmer's words before they dried. Spot the child's sandal imprint. Young princes played treaty or treason here, burying cockroaches as enemy spies. Their laughter haunts the same tiles where envoys kowtowed to nothing. Tug a loose thread on a moth-eaten rug. It unravels a map to Ming silver mines, drawn by a homesick Chinese concubine. Her recipe for lion-shaped dumplings survives in a Guangzhou food stall. Listen, crickets chirp the melody of a lost Javanese peace hymn. You almost miss the punchline. Its lyrics were stolen from a Khmer fishing ditty about incontinent pelicans. Moonlight fades as you exit the courtyard. Behind you, a gecko licks traces of medieval honey wine from a shattered diplomatic seal. Sweetness lingers, even in betrayal. Your flashlight beam grazes a stone mouth frozen mid-chant, lips parted for a hymn that never ends. Rainwater drips where sacred vowels once resonated, each plink against stone, mimicking the tune of Devada's lullaby. Monks burned sandalwood here as recently as the 80s. Ash layers reveal Marlborough filters mixed with ancient incense. Step over a toppled bronze bell, crusted with dried jackfruit sap. Inscriptions name it Esrong Esbeck, voice of the toad, meant to amplify prayers for monsoon rains. Modern audio engineers recreated its tone, sounded like a tuba played underwater. Beneath lichen-streaked apsaras, you find the real showstopper, a 1434 payroll ledger scratched into pillar resin. 374 priests owed rice payments. Last entry reads compensation, delayed due to rodent infestation. Historians still argue whether the clergy starved or switched sides. Pry up a warped floorboard with your thumbnail. A mummified tree frog grins up at you, gemstones glued to its head with bee resin. Puppet shows for temple kids, or someone's failed attempt at amphibian deification. Wipe algae off a bas-relief hymnal. The lyrics aren't Sanskrit, they're instructions for operating a broken irrigation sluice. Turns out pressing the sacred lotus meant kicking rusty gears. Follow the smell of wet plaster to a collapsed alcove. Hidden behind rubble, a Shiva statue wearing novelty elephant trunk glasses. Carbon dating says 15th century. Style suggests a drunk artisan's private joke. Unroll a palm leaf manuscript stuck to itself with snail trails. It's not scripture, a grocery list. Incense sticks, coconut oil, turmeric, and 15 pounds of emergency lard. The Khmer keto diet remains tragically understudied. Notice the chipped teeth marks on a prayer wheel. Bats chewed the wood during drought years, their guano staining the carvings midnight blue. Conservationists call it vandalism. Biologists call it adaptive reuse. Crouch beside a cracked offering bowl full of centuries-old rice. Blow gently, the grains disintegrate into powder that smells of burnt hair. Lab tests found traces of ceremonial opium and modern-day sunscreen. Reconstruct the last ritual using water stains on the ceiling. Drip patterns suggest 3 priests circled the altar clockwise, their soaked robes dragging against a 4th monk napping in the corner. Even apocalypses have slackers. Decipher graffiti on a pillar's shadowed side. A list of temple curses includes "May your lyre strings sprout mushrooms" and endless reincarnation as a durian salesman. The petty grudges of eternity. Brush red ants off a stone hymn book propped open with human teeth. Orthodontists identified them as belonging to a noblewoman from Guangdong. Proof: the choir had international recruitment strategies. Find a skeletal hand clutching a rusted tuning fork. Strike it against your canteen. The D-flat hum matches vibrational frequencies recorded at Bali's active volcanoes. Coincidence or ancient sound therapy? Peel back corroded copper sheeting from the sanctuary wall. Fingerprint analysis revealed 37 individuals touched this spot, all left-handed. A southpaw cult, or just awkward craftsmanship? Sift through rat nests under the offering table. Among coconut husks and snake skins, a Nintendo Game Boy shell. Carbon dating places it between 1990 31997. Proof: divine intervention couldn't stop Pokemon. Lift a crumbling hymnal to your ear. The pages wheeze spores that, according to overly imaginative mycologists, smell like the Queen's last sigh. You're pretty sure it's just mildew. Spot the upside-down carving of Garuda near the exit. Turns out apprentices practiced here, their botched chisel work immortalized as experimental postmodern iconography. College art majors still make pilgrimages. Venture into the pitch-black choir loft. Your boot sinks into something gelatinous, melted beeswax from candles that burned uninterrupted until the 1700s. Local legend claims the flame died mid-note, plunging the world into B minor. As moonlight pierces collapsing domes, you see the truth. Those ancient cracks in the walls, their cement seems from a 1980s Bolivian film, Crew's shoddy restoration. History's just layers of improv. The gecko from earlier licks a faded fresco of dancing skeletons. You swear it's humming. Maybe every ending needs a tone-deaf backup singer. Mosquito wings hum where temple bells once rang, a trillion vibrating needles in the dusk. You swat at your neck and come away with speckled blood yours, or someone's, from 7 centuries past. The canals here aren't just stagnant, they're brewing apocalyptic mojitos of parasites and decay. Notice those cracked basins underfoot. Engineers designed them to drain monsoon floods, but abandoned maintenance when the kings fled. Perfect nurseries for Anopheles larvae, each puddle a battalion factory. Lab tests on these strains show malaria mutations not seen outside Cambodia. Nature's biological warfare division hard at work. A villager's sandal imprint fossilized in drying mud, toes splayed mid-step. They ran when the night air thickened with fever dreams, invaded by bone-crunching chills and burning skies. Archaeologists found child-sized graves, stacked 3 deep, small skeletons clenched around bronze amulets meant to ward off bad air. Dig through a midden heap crusted with beetle nut shells. Buried beneath, clay jars stamped with royal seals, emergency mosquito ointments gone rancid. Ingredients include neem oil, crushed scorpion tails, and suspiciously high levels of hallucinogenic honey. Turns out pest prevention doubled as performance art for the delusional. Follow the scent of sour mango to a collapsed watchtower. Wasp nests cling to its beams, papery husks vibrating with defensive buzzes. Local lore says the insects fled here after malaria wiped out their predators. Though entomologists roll their eyes at the poetry, unwrap a palm leaf bundle half-eaten by termites. It's not scripture, it's a 15th century health advisory. Avoid night vapors by stuffing ears with lard and loudly reciting the chant of 11 syllables. Sadly, volume doesn't deter microbes. Step over a skeleton still gripping a corroded bell. Hieroglyphs name it Kropek, biter of ankles. Workers rang it to signal sunset curfew. When mosquitoes swarmed thickest, modern experiments proved the sound attracted twice as many insects, an ancient OSHA violation. Peel back moss from a wall carving of the goddess Saka. She's swatting at her arm, divine blood droplets morphing into winged demons. Theologians call it metaphor, epidemiologists call it public service art. Crouch beside a broken stone sarcophagus, lid pried open by desperate hands. Inside, 8 skeletons curled together like nested spoons. Carbon dating shows they died decades apart, proving the tomb became a recurring fever ward. Spot the faded mural of a king under a mosquito net. Gold threads from the fabric still cling to the plaster, tarnished reminders that wealth couldn't buy a decent mesh weave. Find a corroded bronze syringe tucked behind a votive candle. Inscriptions boast it could extract malarial humors via the left nostril. Forensic analysis found traces of fermented goat milk in the nozzle. because nothing cures parasites like dairy up the sinuses. Brush dirt off a terracotta water jug sealed with beeswax. Inside, 72 desiccated mosquitoes preserved since the 14th century. A tax collector's revenge, or someone's failed attempt at pathogen insurance. Decipher a chiseled plea on the back of a Shiva statue. Great One, send frogs, or bats, or angry pelicans. Turns out locals begged for natural predators before understanding germ theory. Open a rotted medicine chest. Its compartments ooze black sludge that smells of licorice and regret. Recipe scrolls inside recommend leech placements for wet lung disease, specifically the left kneecap during waning moons. Press your palm against a child's handprint in drying clay. Fingertip ridges show prolonged exposure to medicinal herbs or someone's attempt to season dinner mid-plague. Notice the stone dwarfs along the causeway. Each holds a chipped cup once filled with citronella oil. Priests relit them nightly until the reservoirs ran dry, then started burning their own hair. Wipe monsoon grit from a plaque above the infirmary door. It reads abandoned myths here crossed out and replaced with try praying harder. Desperation's eraser is always blunt. Peek inside a dissected mosquito fossilized in amber. Its last meal was a noblewoman's blood from Ayathea. Geography suggests patient zero attended a cross-border lychee festival and shared more than fruit. Sift through ash in the crematorium's last operating kiln. Mixed with human bone fragments, shards of jade tiger amulets melted into blobs resembling startled koalas. The gecko from earlier gnaws on a moth by your ear. Its crunching syncs with the fever chant still looping in your skull. History isn't written by the survivors. It's hummed by the mosquitoes who outlasted them. You wade through knee-deep muck that once grew imperial rice. Now it's a graveyard of cracked fishing weights. The Tonlé sap's shoreline retreats daily water stained rust red by sediment and spilled beetle nut juice. A hollowed-out sampan rocks beside you, its prow carved with half-erased lotus motifs. Refugees converted temple barges into floating homes when the earth grew teeth and the gods stopped listening. Step onto a trembling bamboo dock, the first of 7, leading to houses on stilts. Knots in the wood tell stories, a notch for every Mekong flood that missed its season. This lake once swelled to 4 times its dry season size, a heartbeat synchronizing with monsoons. Now it coughs up catfish no larger than your finger, their bellies glittering with microplastics from distant eras. Peel a rotting fishing net off a submerged statue's face. Ganesha's trunk snapped mid-curve. Locals repurposed temple rubble as anchor stones, though some swear idols drag their boats sideways at midnight. Archaeologists found 13th century prayer beads woven into nest looms. Faith unraveled thread by thread. Crouch beside a floating market stall selling grilled squid and despair. The vendor's grandmother taught her to carve amulets from sacred fig wood. Now, she whittles bottle openers for beer-drunk tourists. Beneath her raft, a weighted sack of bronze eyeless Buddha heads, ballast for leaner catches. Spot the teenager diving for mussels with a dented cooking pot. His lungs outlast most, a genetic quirk from ancestors who survived the great malaria die-off. He surfaces with 3 shells, and a human molar tosses the tooth to a one-eared catfish trailing his boat. Unwrap a sodden palm leaf bundle salvaged from a collapsed shrine. Instead of scriptures, it's a bureaucratic ledger tallying water taxes for the heavenly reservoir. Entries stop abruptly after a note in red ochre. Collector drowned, send replacement. Who floats? Follow the stench of fermenting prahok to a houseboat's kitchen shelf. Jars of fish paste line the walls, their expiration dates measured in monarchs' reigns. One lid bears Ayathea's cobra crest, a diplomatic gift turned survival rations. Historians still argue whether the Khmer traded monuments for mango pickles when Siamese envoys came knocking. Sift through a dredged-up midden heap crusted with snail shells. Buried beneath, a corroded bronze Khmer Rouge bullet. Fishermen here reshaped gun barrels into fishhook molds long before NGOs taught upcycling. Progress moves in mangled circles. Pry open a warped monsoon shutter, its slats reinforced with pages from a French colonial ledger. Arithmetic columns frame a child's charcoal sketch of a leaping dolphin extinct here since the last king's opium haze. Count the generations in a single stilt-house pillar, 8 layers of repairs from floor, joist to waterline, great-grandfather's axe marks, grandmother's emergency, wire wrap, son's duct-taped PVC patch. The family sinks 2 centimeters annually, their chronometer etched in algae. Watch an old woman weave baskets from lotus stems dyed with engine oil. Her mother used temple flower pigments, crimson for Vishnu's grace, indigo for Shiva's wrath. Now she matches the colors of plastic debris, rusted anchor chains, and faded Fanta labels. Listen to the creak of floating schoolhouse tires against dock pilings. Kids chant multiplication tables between cleaning squid, their textbooks warped by humidity into origami waves. A dusty glass case displays Angkor Wat's replica beside a poster titled Our Dying Lake. Graph it. Dig through a bait bucket's murky water. Minnows dart around a thumb-sized terracotta head. J of Armin VII's serene smile, eroded by carp nibbles. Locals drop these into the lake as makeshift fish shelters. And maybe, despite archaeologists, inspect a canoe's patched hull, its cracks sealed with tar and ground chili powder. The captain swears it repels both river snakes and tax inspectors. His great-great-uncle transported lotus bud concubines for the royal court. Now he ferries backpackers with selfie sticks, find a waterlogged monastic robe snagged on a mangrove root. Hemming, it required silk spun from 23 golden orb weaver spiders, a technique lost when weavers fled dying mulberry farms. Conservationists tried reintroducing the spiders in 2009. They preferred building webs around KFC dumpsters. Catch the glint of a drone buzzing over fish farms, NGOs mapping erosion patterns. A grandmother flicks a carp scale at its camera. Her people recorded tides in chisel marks on temple walls. Now algorithms predict when her home becomes seabed. Notice the empty alcove where lake spirits once received flower offerings. It's stuffed with waterlogged fire extinguishers and a snorkeling mask. Modernity's altar gathers dust while villagers rub garlic on outboard motors, a charm against engine failure. Taste the irony in the air, it's saltier since shrimp farms replaced rice paddies. Children draw crayfish gills over their throats to honor the water festival. Elders whisper that the sea advances faster each year, reclaiming the empire silt grain by stolen silt grain. The sun sinks into a haze of gasoline fumes and grilled eel. You're handed a bowl of turtle soup that may actually be instant noodles. Somewhere beneath the lake's mercury surface, 9 centuries of kings sleep fitfully, their dreams infested with anchor lines and chlorine tides. French pith helmets bob between your floating hut and the horizon, their binoculars trained on jungle-clad spires the locals never stopped seeing. Colonial archivists press flowers from Angkor's stones into leather-bound journals, as if cataloging ghosts makes them real. You shuffle through trunks of sun-bleached maps, 19th century delusions pressed between mothballs and mildew. Rubber barons mistook temple reliefs for irrigation blueprints, sent indentured workers to dig canals where dragons once danced. A water-stained field sketch shows a toppled Vishnu statue labeled discovered. 1860, though Khmer families had picnicked in its shadow for generations. Nearby, a child's crayon recreation of a steel inscription, complete with stick figure gods waving at French archaeologists. Their reports called the empire a riddle only Europe could solve, never mentioning the Cambodian guides who corrected their mistranslations. Smell the camphor wafting from a conservation kit abandoned on your dock. Colonial restorers used cement meant for Paris sewers to patch divine faces, their quick-drying arrogance cracking the stone within monsoons. Locals hid Banti S-rays pink sandstone goddesses under rice husks, told the colonizers they'd returned to heaven. Unfold a 1923 telegram praising Angkor's salvage by the École Française d'Extrême-Orient, official letterhead concealing rifle cartridges smuggled to rebel caves. Curators meticulously traced bas-reliefs of celestial dancers, while their porters etched resistance codes into bamboo water canteens. One conservator's journal frets over lichen-damaging Apsara carvings, and in the margin, a recipe for gunpowder disguised as ink. Inspect a crumbling workbook filled with temple rubbings, the charcoal patterns interrupted by pressed leeches. Henry Mauhat's discovery narrative fades beneath monsoon stains. Locals had guided him to Angkor Wat, knowing he'd get lost otherwise. His compass sits rusting in a tackle box, its needle forever pointing toward his own myth. Taste the tin can colonialism in a century-old sardine tin dredged from the lake bed. Expedition chefs canned river fish beside Angkor's moats, their labels proclaiming product of French Indochina. Underneath, Khmer kitchen knives reshaped into chisels for defacing colonial survey markers. Find colonial hydrology charts overlaying Angkor's reservoirs with proposed rubber plantations. Engineers calculated reservoir depths to the centimeter, yet assumed monsoon cycles bowed to decimal points. Rebellious surveyors misplaced markers into silt. Let the jungle reclaim the colonizers' graph paper fantasies. Eavesdrop on a historian arguing with her grad student over brandy-splashed field notes. She insists the French love for Angkor was pure. He counters that they only preserved temples facing photo-op sunrises. Their debate silences when a fisherman's daughter presents a hand-drawn map. Her ancestors maintained Angkor's canals throughout the lost centuries. Decode a malaria-addled architect's fever sketch. Bayon's face towers mutated into Eiffel's latticework. His accompanying manifesto proposed replacing Naga balustrades with gas lamps. To civilize the shadows, workers accidentally stored the blueprints in a termite mound, nature's edit biting deeper than any critique. Sort through expedition photos of servant boys, gifted as human tape measures beside temple walls. The colonial gaze never noticed their fingers subtly bending, corrupting the archival record with silent resistance. Modern algorithms still struggle to reconcile those images with laser scans. The empire's true scale, encrypted in children's knuckles, handle a rusted Angkor Wat replica snow globe, manufactured for the 1931 Paris Expo. Its plastic temple bleached pink by decades of tropical sun. Khmer dancers shipped to perform at the exhibit smuggled home blueprints of European printing presses. Seeds of revolution encased in kitsch. Photogrammetry drones hum like vengeful cicadas above pre-con's collapsed galleries. Their operators don't realize local teens hack the feeds, inserting glitch art monsters, mocking colonial-era restorations. Heritage becomes a game of digital hide-and-seek, with the jungle always counting to infinity. Sift through silt to find a Gaston Suisse brooch, enameled temple spires sold to jazz-age socialites. Its emerald eyes watch you from a bed of salvaged hieroglyphs. A goddess reincarnated as tourist tat. The same Parisian jeweler later crafted pins for the Khmer Rouge elite, proving beauty bends to any regime holding the chisel. Over here, a conservationist's voice memo, UV filters installed on Angkor Wat, helicopter delivery delayed by monsoon. His Khmer assistant hums along with a power drill, tracing the melody of an empire's funeral chant. They work in tandem, mending cracks opened by centuries and widened by good intentions. Unearth a cinereal canister labeled Angkor excavation, 1927. Its nitrate film bubbling into abstract rot. The final frames show French archaeologists reenacting temple rituals with moth-eaten parlor curtains, unaware their local fixer had swapped the sacred texts with Aristophanes' comedies. Holy laughter echoes through corrupted celluloid. Inventory, a museum's salvaged artifacts in a flooded basement, registration tags blooming with mold. A bodhisattva's head floats beside a generator's oil slick, both equally suspended in neglect. Curators once cited humidity as their greatest foe, never imagining the lake itself would come auditing. Flip through a visitor log from the 1960s, Chicago schoolteachers, and defecting princes scribbling beside Khmer caretakers' moisture warnings. Their margin sketches, tanks overlaid on temple processions, hint at futures already written in gunpowder. Preservationists pasted conservation guidelines over the prophecies, turning revolution into footnotes. Wipe algae from a UNESCO plaque, promising safeguarding cultural heritage. Its bronze letters, pitted by acid rain brewed across newly industrialized borders. The real protection happened upstream, where elders diverted sewage from a sacred spring using terracotta pipes from the 1100s. The French colonial fantasy drowns itself here in a lake that refused to stay mapped. Resistance beads gleam in moonlight. Rebel sonar pings off submerged temple gates. And Angkor's true guardians still whisper through fishermen's nets. You press your palm against a waterlogged archive box. Feel 9 centuries of unbroken memory thrumming through warped wood. Tomorrow's scholars will debate whether empires end or simply learn tighter spirals. Tonight, the lake keeps its secrets in fractured algorithms and carp-gnawed stones. Archaeologists' trowels scrape through 9 centuries of mud, each layer a ledger of Angkor's undoing. You kneel beside a sediment core, glowing under lead strips. Its stripes tell of monsoons dwindling reservoirs, filling with silt forests retreating. A grad student jokes about finding pollen from the world's most catastrophic rice party. Her laughter cuts when the sample reveals fern spores outnumbering grain husks 30-1. Turns out empires starve in ecological fine print. Someone's abandoned a mud-caked sandal from the 1990s dig beside your sieve, its tread preserved like a modern artifact. Locals insist the earth here eats time unevenly. Watch how your smartphone corrodes in 3 days, while 12th century iron nails gleam untouched. A farmer upriver shows you his lucky stone, later identified by Oxford as a furnace talisman from Angkor's final ironworks. History's debris becomes tomorrow's lottery ticket. Channel your inner Indiana Jones while dodging UNESCO drones mapping temple subsidence. Their laser scans miss the real story: bacteria in ancient reservoir mud producing antibiotics that shame modern pharma. Lab techs call it KHM, patent pending, while monks brew it into chants. The jungle's revenge comes in petri dishes and protest songs. Peel back algae from a drainage stone carved with 7-headed naga, its mouths clogged by polyester microfibers from last decade's tourist scarves. Hydrologists debate whether the empire fell from drought or bad engineering. But you've seen Bangkok's sewage drifting through these canals. Same recipe, different chefs. A child offers you a Coke bottle filled with stagnant moat water. It's older than your grandfather. She lies with a vendor's grin. Carbon dating confirms what rice farmers always knew. Their worst harvests match Angkor's collapse years, yet the soil remembers tricks the archives forgot. Watch an elder scatter shrimp eggs into bone-dry patties. They'll sleep until the rains return. His cheek pouch bulges with betel nut, and SMS alerts about incoming storms. Tradition and tech hold hands here when the permits allow it. Handle a ledger from J. of Armin VII's reign. Its inventory of 32,000 temples, now cross-referenced with deforestation maps. Turns out each sacred spire required clearing 3 hectares of dipterocarp, a divine carbon footprint. Environmental historians mutter about stone inflation, while monks replant seedlings in the shape of mandalas. The gods demand installment plans. Witness the Great Wall of Angkor debate that contested earthen embankment experts swear is either a defensive line or the world's oldest landfill. You side with the geologist licking soil samples. Tastes like fermented governance, he declares, and promptly orders a beer. The truth probably involves both panic and garbage day. Sift through a backhoe scoop and find a ceramic shard stamped with 2 faces, one Khmer, one Cham. Fusion cuisine predates cookbooks, but this was likely a prisoner's last meal. Lab analysis shows traces of mangosteen and panic. Historians still argue whether the empire split at the seams or got pickpocketed by drought. Your money's on death by 1,000 missed meals. Archive interns play Slayer at full volume to scare away looters. It works until the temple's resident gibbon troop starts drumming on empty propane tanks. Fieldwork devolves into an interspecies noise complaint until someone remembers the original Angkor orchestras tuned their gongs to elephant footsteps. Progress. Sample the mycormediation experiment where fungi digest concrete from 1920s restorations. The French used cement that sweats acid in the tropics. Nature's hired a cleanup crew with spore-based sarcasm. A local biologist winks. Even mold knows colonialism was a bad recipe. His fungal cultures outpace the grant money, as always. Chart the cockroach migration into Barre Reservoir cracks. Their DNA carries pollen from plants extinct elsewhere. Urban entomologists high-five over insect archivists, while your sleeping bag becomes a six-legged metropolis. Sweet dreams, Darwin. At night, ground-penetrating radar reveals suburban sprawl beneath the temples, blackened hearths, and fish ponds, mapping a city that loved itself to death. The team's 3D printer churns out plastic karma miniature Angkors, destined for conference tables halfway home. One hydrologist slips an aspirin into the reservoir model for the headaches we're inheriting. Peel a rotting Save Angkor t-shirt from a silt gauge. The slogan faded before the shirt reached the gift shop. Like most rescue plans, a tuk-tuk driver recounts his uncle's job hauling sand for 1960s concrete repairs. We sold them the rope, he shrugs. Then quotes the day rate for Western volunteers. Blame lingers in the silt like mercury. Every empire's autopsy reveals a favorite poison. Archaeologists tally the costs in grant proposals and therapist bills. You pocket a shard inscribed with half a royal seal, its authority eroded by worms. Tomorrow's dissertation will call this a multivariate collapse. Tonight, it's just another broken thing. The earth refuses to mourn. You trace a finger over temple walls, sweating lichen. The same stonemason's marks from 8 centuries ago biting your skin. An inscription boasts of 300,000 workers serving the gods. But the math never adds up. Modern demographers whisper that feeding that army would have required rice paddies stretching to the coast. Yet maps show only forests and floodplains. Someone's cooking the books, or the gods accepted creative accounting. A conservator scrubs pigeon droppings from a dancer's eyebrow, her sponge revealing flecks of gold leaf in the mortar. They mixed maize into the glue, she mutters. Starch from a crop the empire wasn't even growing yet. Historians still argue whether this proves undocumented trade routes or desperate substitutions as rice dwindled. The truth sticks better than 8th century carbohydrates. Your boot knocks loose a stone tablet. Its flipped side chronicles a king's donation of 17 elephants, and the 14 officials executed for losing a single ivory tusk. Mortality rates for temple accountants rivaled frontline soldiers. Calculator apps feel inadequate here. Try dividing rations for 1 million mouths using only palm fronds and dread. A child peddles authentic worker rebellion coins. They're just buffalo tokens from the 1980s with nail scratches. Still, you buy 3. The original strikes depicted kings holding scales, weights removed to hide grain shortages. Modern forgers at least include the Buddha's face for resale value. Progress. Thermal cameras catch a volunteer napping in a god's outstretched palm, his body heat signature matching 12th century offering rituals. They slept here between shifts, a guide shrugs. The carvers left snooze grooves in the libraries. Check the Sanskrit. Nowhere does it mention mandatory overtime for enlightenment. Ground-penetrating radar reveals a mass grave beneath the spice market, skeletons still clutching chisels and beetle pouches. Forensic dentists identify grooves from gripping stone dust and fractures from collapsing scaffolds. OSHA would have padlocked the place, but try telling that to a God King's autopsy report. Dust storms mask the sound of pickaxes, modern ones, this time. A crew demolishes a hotel, violating the temple sightlines, its concrete weeping rust-colored tears. Workers grin as they smash a minibar stocked with Angkor-branded vodka, now its real heritage. One jokes, pocketing a tiny Buddha-shaped bottle. The moon rises over the arithmetic of empire. Each ornate pillar requires 1,000 meals uneaten each canal, like 100 childhoods lost to dredging. Your phone dies, recording nightjar calls, its battery drained like the reservoirs that fed these stones. Some ledgers balance only in ruins. The jungle's humidity clings to your shirt like a second skin, its weight pressing you toward Neek Peen's crumbling pavilion. Once, this was a hospital complex where pilgrims bathed in sacred waters. Now green sludge swirls where healers whispered chants. Archaeologists confirmed 9 medicinal herbs in the sediment: lime, turmeric, even traces of mercury. Holistic wellness, 12th century edition. You crouch beside the central pool, its stone naga serpent guardians, half swallowed by algae. The inscription promises waters to cure fever and folly. Ironic given the brain-eating amoeba found here last monsoon. A tourist brochure clings to a rusty railing, its sun-bleached photo showing smiling kids waiting where 2 French hydrologists got dysentery in 1923. Progress marches sideways. Dragonflies dart over the scummed surface. Their shadows mimic the temple's original layout. 4 satellite pools once channeled healing elements: earth, wind, fire, water. Someone forgot toxic stagnation in their elemental balance. Historians still argue whether climate shifts or neglected maintenance doomed the system, or if rival priests sabotaged the sluices. The answer floats face up in the muck: a bloated frog wearing a tiny crown of pondweed. Your guidebook mentions a mysterious uptick in pilgrim deaths circa 1308 CE, the same decade neighboring reservoirs went saline. Coincidence? Tell that to the skeleton found here clutching an empty water jug, its teeth eroded by decades of acidic brews. Conservationists tried draining the pools in 2017. The pumps choked on ritual offerings: 17 corroded bronze bowls, 3 gold earrings, and enough wish coins to buy a decent motorbike. A vendor offers sanitized holy water in Angkor beer bottles. You decline. He shrugs and sips from his own stash. Dead germs make strong karma. He croaks, though that might just be his throat infection. Nearby, a faded sign warns against swimming in Khmer English, and ASCII art of a drowning stick figure. Moonlight reveals cracked pipe systems under the murk, originally designed to filter water through sand and charcoal. Modern tests show lead levels high enough to cure gullibility forever. You touch a conduit outlet, your fingertip comes away smelling of fermentation and hopelessness. The temple's original engineers would have face-palmed if their skulls weren't currently propping up a pharmacist's herb garden. A burst of giggling erupts downstream. Teenagers dare each other to lick the sacred stones. Their phone lights glide over a carving of physicians praying to Vishnu. His hand gestures suspiciously similar to talk to the beak. One kid slips on biofilm, his designer sneaker sinking into ooze that once treated royal hemorrhoids. The circle of life and athlete's foot. Dawn exposes wisps of steam rising from the largest pool, geothermal vents deep below still fighting to cleanse the water. It's almost noble, like a retired firefighter hosing down an inferno with a teacup. The Ministry of Culture banned sacrificial goat blood in 2005. Too much iron for the ecosystem. Locals now toss antibiotics. Instead, tiny orange pills glinting like temple jewels in the muck. You spot a faded mural of the goddess Gunga, her water urn cracked by roots. Restoration teams debate filling it with epoxy or just letting the moss finish the job. Here, where devotion and dehydration share the same death rattle, the Khmer genius for bending nature feels less like brilliance and more like a suicide note written in irrigation charts. The air tastes of sweat and rusted coins, your sandals crunching over brick fragments inlaid with lotus patterns. These tiles once paved Suryavarman II's throne room. Now, they're just jagged souvenirs of divine accounting. Experts claim this king commissioned Angkor, Wat, all 37,000 workers, and 6 million tons of sandstone. But his real legacy? Tax codes denser than IKEA assembly manuals. You stoop to examine a pillar etched with 300,000 rice basket quotas, arithmetic as sharp as temple spires. Each numeral's carved by clerks who probably died squinting. An inscription brags about purifying souls through labor. But let's translate. Working peasants to death builds better heavens for the rich. That faint hissing sound could be cicadas, or 1,000 medieval tax auditors rolling in their urns. Moonlight glints on a silver bowl, abandoned near a drainage ditch, its rim stamped with the king's lotus seal. Here's your quirky tidbit. Court records mention gold-covered termite mounds offered at festivals. Bugs got bling while farmers ate bark stew. Seems fair. You poke the bowl with a stick. It's fused to a root system that's been siphoning temple rainwater since Brexit. A lizard scuttles over a mural showing elephants hauling tribute. One beast's painted eye follows you. Animist graffiti or bad resin. Historians still argue whether Suryavarman's policies were pious or just a bone-deep fear of being forgotten. His face peers from every wall, though the nose lichen gives him a suspiciously Pinocchio vibe. Rotten silk curtains flutter in a doorway, their threads still dyed imperial yellow. Step through, and yep, more tax records. This chamber stored palm leaf scrolls listing every cow, child, and bronze spoon in the kingdom. The floors littered with bamboo tally sticks, each notch a family's hunger. One stick bears teeth marks, probably some medieval dad's stress snack. Your canteen sloshes as you pass a defaced statue of the goddess Lakshmi. Someone's wedged a modern lottery ticket in her stone palm. Desperation's a hell of a time traveler. The walls here reek of mold and futility, decay peeling away propaganda to reveal the math underneath. A civilization isn't murdered, it's audited into oblivion. A mural depicts Suryavarman receiving a golden sword from Shiva. The god's expression screams, read the fine print. 3 court poets starved during the carvings, unveiling their rations, diverted to gild another guardian lion. The king's own chronicle calls this austerity in service to eternity. The peasants called it bullshit. Wind howls through a broken skylight, carrying the shriek of iron hinges from a storeroom doorway. Inside, racks of ceremonial axes dulled by centuries of dust. Their blades were never meant for battle, just chopping down dissent. A mouse nest in a helmet suggests even rodents found the headgear impractical. You trip on a loose cobblestone engraved with a warning. He who questions the god king's tithes shall remain unwhole. Underneath, a child's doodle of a duck. Priorities. The corridor ahead slopes downward, literally sinking under the weight of its own ego. Your flashlight catches a water stain shaped like a crown, or maybe a noose. Flip a coin. Bats launch from a vaulted ceiling. As you disturb their lunch, dried beetle wings crunch underfoot. This was the granary annex. See those hundreds of empty urns. Each held enough rice to feed a family for a year before the king rerouted it to temple festivals. Famines, just divine redistribution. Ask any economist in a gilded palanquin. A shattered sundial lies in your path, its shadow forever stuck at the hour of Suryavarman's death. His final edict demanded a mourning period as endless as the stars. Peasants got 3 minutes, then back to hauling stones. Your phone buzzes, a monsoon alert. Angkor's engineers could have texted that if they hadn't spent centuries digging graves for their own ambition. Footsteps echo behind you, a mirage, or a pissed-off heritage official. You spin to find a tourism poster slid from its nail. It shows Suryavarman's tomb glowing under romantic sunset lighting. Reviews called it a bit much. A spider's spun its web across the king's stone smirk, nature's final Yelp review. Dawn leaks through wall cracks, the light catching a bronze plaque you've been leaning against. Wipe off the grime, and it's a loan agreement with Chinese traders. 2,000 silk rolls borrowed against future harvests, harvests that never came. Interest rates could have toppled Shiva himself. No wonder the envoy who signed this got promoted to target practice coordinator. A gecko darts over the contract, its tail brushing the king's stamped seal. One claw hesitates over the claws, about debtor prisons. Then it scurries away. Smart lizard. You follow its path to a collapsed archway, sunlight blinding you beyond its rubble. Some exits aren't marked, they're earned. You squeeze through the rubble-choked archway, roots lacing your ankles like bureaucratic red tape. Before you stretches Ta Prom's signature chaos, corridors eaten alive by silk cotton trees, their roots coiling through doorways like veins pumping green poison. Walls list sideways, caught mid-collapse by arboreal intruders. It's the Khmer's final math lesson. Nature always balances the ledger. A cracked steel nearby brags this temple once stored 5 tons of gold dishes, plus 365 villages worth of rice. That's the mainstream footnote. But scribble in the margins. Accountants tracked EVERY, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, down to 4,000 pig bladders offered annually. Scholars still debate whether they were ritual balloons or medieval whoopee cushions. Your boot sinks into loam where celestial dancers once spun their gilt heels, crushing termite kings. Now, sunlight bleeds through a ceiling strangled by fig roots, dappling a headless statue of Pradnaparamita. Her stone palm still cradles a beehive, the honeycombs oozing gold that outlasted the empire's coffers. A lizard flicks across her shoulders, dining on moths drawn to inscription moss. Wisdom beyond wisdom, the Sanskrit proclaims, though the graffiti underneath reads peon, looted this 1923 in Khmer. Some lessons transcend centuries. You trace a root thicker than your thigh, its bark fused to a bas-relief of demonic armies. The carving shows Ravana shaking Mount Kailash. But here, the mountain cracking is literal. A fault line runs through Shiva's third eye tree roots, wedging it wider each monsoon. Maintenance logs, drains cleared yearly, until tax collectors prioritized temple tithes over mop duty. Rot wins when accountants nap. A breeze stirs pollen from rotted offering bowls, the air thick with spores and unsolved riddles. Historians still feud over Ta Prom's floor plan. Was this maze meant to mimic Enlightenment's tortuous path, or just bad urban planning? The central shrine hides behind 6 collapsed galleries, like a nesting doll of imperial regret. Your map disintegrates in the humidity, as useless as Suryavarman's infrastructure bonds. You step over a toppled lintel carved with apsaras, their stone smiles now hosting a vibrant mold ecosystem. One celestial maiden's cheek sprouts orange fungus, giving her a slap-happy clown vibe. Nearby, a drainage channel brims with millipedes, the original architect's worst nightmare. Inscriptions promised eternal flow of sacred waters. They forgot to factor in bug orgies. A child's sandal lies fossilized in mud, its hemp straps intact after 8 centuries. Size matches the footprint graffiti you've passed 12 times in this godforsaken loop. Ta Prom's genius, making every exit feel like deja vu. Your canteen's empty, The thirst reminding you that elite hydrologists once piped coconut milk to royal baths. Peasants drank stagnant moat water with bonus protein. As the guides now joke, your flashlight dies near a mural of Indra's elephant, its trunk raised in eternal trumpet. The batteries roll into a crack filled with shards of Chinese porcelain. 13th century trade debt, literally underfoot. Cell service here, 1 bar, enough to fact-check that wild pig bladder theory. Wikipedia says ritual objects. Sure, tell that to the medieval dad forced to hunt boar with dysentery. Dusk seeps through the canopy, shadows merging with lichen-eaten faces of long god kings. The jungle exhales damp secrets onto your neck. Whispers of a maintenance tunnel behind Vishnu's 7th left toe. You grope blindly, palming stone toes, until there, a hidden alcove crammed with broken carts. Hubcaps splintered from hauling one too many tribute statues. Axles warped by the weight of divine ego. Moonlight unveils a mural the guidebooks miss, nobles playing chess with elephant bone pieces. The caption gloats about a 12-year-old prodigy who beat the king, until you notice the pawns are carved like starving farmers. Clever kid, the reward for his victory. Execution for disrespecting celestial strategy. Checkmate, you pocket a ceramic shard, its glaze still vibrant cerulean after centuries underground. Factory stamp on the back. Sukhothai Kiln 23. Turns out even rival kingdoms cashed in on Angkor's collapse with souvenir hawkers. Capitalism, the ultimate strangler fig. A frog plops into a well that once mirrored the constellations, sky now replaced by algae and frog spawn. Dip your hand in its warmer than blood. Archaeologists pulled 14 skeletons from this shaft in 2012, their bones jumbled with gold votive coins. Drowned treasure, or mid-collapse bonus payday. The water slurps, a hungry sound. Your exit appears as a slit between 2 leaning towers, the stone weeping red mineral tears. Final insult. The Khmer word for doorway also means surrender. Push through into blinding moonlight, trailing cobwebs like unfinished temple tax receipts. The jungle sighs its victory complete. Ta Prohm never fell. It simply forgot how to beg. Your fingers brush moss-slick stone, the sensation neither dry nor wet, but something archaeology forgot to name. Humidity hangs thick as temple incense. If incense were made from decomposing ferns and bad guano. Beneath your palm warmth, not from sunlight or human hands. The low hum of sandstone molecules vibrating after 9 centuries of jungle gossip. A gecko's tail flicks across a carving of Indra's chariot, its wheels clogged with the same red mud that stalled Angkor's final grain carts. You're standing where pilgrims once pressed their foreheads to Devarapala statues. The guardians' stern faces now eroded into Rorschach blobs. Tourism brochures claim this was spiritual enlightenment. Reality. Sweaty devotee conga lines medieval crowds funneling toward overpriced blessing stalls. Cicadas roar like malfunctioning AC units, their drone bouncing off a collapsed library wall. Between the cracks, plastic water bottles and a Coke can from 1997. Even World Heritage sites can't escape the modern curse of litterbug pilgrims. Archaeologists found Ming Dynasty tea bowls here last decade, proof China's merchant class vacationed in Angkor long before Instagram. The more things change, sunlight slants through strangler fig roots, projecting a lacework shadow onto your shoes. It mirrors a ceiling mural you glimpsed in section 12. Celestial dancers, frozen mid-twirl, their gilded eyes followed worshippers, now just hollow sockets tracking your water bottle's condensation. You take a swig, dribble some for the earth. Old habits die hard. A breeze stirs a limestone Krishna's flute, or tries to. The instrument snapped off in 1431, later sold as a paperweight to a Portuguese merchant. Mainstream fact: Angkor remained a pilgrimage site long after kings fled. Quirkier footnote: workers here slathered the stones in resin each monsoon, not for preservation. The smell repelled tigers drawn by sacrificial meat. Ancient tiger repellent marketing opportunity lost to history. Your heel skids on a brick carved with lotus petals. The grooves, now a superhighway for neon green ants. They're hauling beetle carcasses toward a crack in Yamas, throne the god of death, hosting an arthropod buffet. Inscriptions warned against defiling sacred spaces. Nobody mentioned picnic etiquette for insects. Rain begins, fat drops smacking the Bayon's towers first. Those iconic stone faces drink the downpour, moss beards darkening into something almost alive. You're soaked before reaching the shelter of a barley crusher's archway. 10th century engineering humor. Even the emergency exits require a thigh workout. Puddles form around your shoes, mirroring the constellation Matsia, once painted on this ceiling. Fishermen paid to float here during eclipses, their boats reflecting cosmic fish onto the stars. Modern myth says you can still see fin shadows if you squint during thunderstorms. You squint, see nothing, to get a noseful of rogue drainage runoff. A flashlight beam catches something metallic in the archway's groove. Not gold, too bad. Just a 1930s francs coin stamped with dancers from the Paris Colonial Expo. Cultural appropriation or avant-garde art. France never decided. You flip it, lands tails. The jungle approves. Under your left foot, something grinds. Pull back the leaf litter, dental tools, 19th century French archaeologist's kit, or Khmer Rouge dentistry leftovers. Both options equally grim. The pliers still grip a decayed molar, patient unknown. You nudge it back under sludge. Some histories deserve their curtains. The rain stops as abruptly as a power cut. Steam rises from a headless Naga statue, its cobra hoods now fern planters. 12 of 72 Nagas originally guarded this courtyard. The rest sold to fund a governor's mistress in Phnom Penh. Historians still argue whether the empire fell from climate or centuries of petty embezzlement. You crouch to examine Sanskrit graffiti inside a broken urn. The Carolingian minuscule, mixed with Khmer numerals, suggests an 8th century visitor from Germany. Byzantium. Ancient Yelp review, 5 stars. Divine curry. Bring diarrhea tonics. Dusk turns the Eastern Gallery into a shadow puppet theater. Bats swoop where jugglers once entertained nobles, their wing beats echoing off walls scored by looters' chisels. Your phone's flashlight reveals Victorian-era vandalism. W. Pickering, 1884, beside a crude etching of Queen Victoria's face. Colonialism's greatest hits arrogance with subpar art skills. Moonlight resurrects the terrace of elephants, their trunks now broken stumps. Kids dare each other to ride them during full moons. You spot fresh sneaker treads on a royal howdah. Security cameras catch nothing. Stone pachyderms keep secrets better than living ones. The night smells of frangipani and diesel, a tour bus idling beyond the park gates. For 800 years, kings decreed this plaza silent after sunset. Now, Korean pop songs drift from a vendor's boombox. Shiva would have hated it. He preferred lute music. Your thumb traces a bullet scar on Vishnu's knee. Khmer Rouge target practice circa 1977. Deity durability test. Failed. Restorers patched it with concrete. The gray blob, nicknamed Lenin's wart by local guides. You half expect it to start lecturing about proletariats. Fireflies emerge near a reflected library moat. Their flashes sync with childhood memories of disco balls. Ancient docents probably spun similar tailies. See those sparkles, Indra's disco of souls. Tourists oohed, then asked where to buy rice wine. A lost cat darts through the Phymenocus pyramid, ancestor of temple mousers, immortalized in Joe Dogwin's 13th century travelogues. He claimed they were royal spies. You meow. It flips you off with its tail. Feline opinion on historiography clear. Dawn arrives as you reach the East Barre Reservoir. Its vast bed, now rice paddies, stewing in mist. Workers bend where dredgers once battled, silt their sickles, flashing like miniature Angkorian swords. The water's long gone, the fight remains. Your rented bike leans against a tree, handlebars wrapped in Angkor beer logos. 1200 years earlier, same spot sold palm wine in terracotta jugs. Some thirsts outlive empires. You pedal past a coconut stall playing radio news, debates about dam projects upriver. The announcer's voice fades, replaced by the hiss of tires over gravel. The jungle shrinks in your rearview mirror, stone towers dissolving into green haze. On the roadside, a child waves with one hand, clutching a stone apsara's severed finger in the other. Commerce and reverence. The dance continues. Tuk-tuks swarm Siem Reap's neon-lit pub street, their drivers shouting temple facts like auctioneers. See Angkor Wat sunrise. Same view as Jayavarman VII's morning coffee ritual. You grimace, but tomorrow you'll wake at 4 a.m. anyway. Legacy's a curious trap. At your hotel, you scrub laterite dust from shins, the red swirls in the drain recalling ritual henna from long-dead brides. The mirror fogs for a moment. You glimpse Bayon faces in the steam. Blink gone. Jet lag or ghosts. The minibar stays closed on that debate. You press your hotel key against the balcony railing, leaving a faint scratch. In 2413, will some historian ponder this mark, sublime artifact, or tourist vandalism? Context decides all. The night hums with the same secrets that outlived kings, now buzzing through power lines and motorbike engines, lying in bed a ceiling fan, chopping moonlight into strobe effects. You realize Angkor never needed saving. Empires are guest houses, civilizations the guests. Checkout time always comes. Sleep drags you under. The ACs were merging with jungle whispers through half-open windows. Dreams arrive, as fragmented as temple stele. A procession of elephants carrying Instagram influencers. Apsaras doing TikTok dances. In the throne hall, melted ice cream pooling around Shiva's third eye. Monkeys steal your shoes, demand cryptocurrency ransom. You wake laughing, the joke lost in translation between centuries. Morning brings concrete evidence. Mosquito bites in the shape of the minor Devata alphabet. Your guidebook calls it coincidence. The old woman selling mangoes at dawn winks, her teeth stained red from betel nut and unspoken truths. You buy 2 slices, eat them where royal astronomers once charted the monsoon's arrival. Sweetness needs no translation. The taxi to the airport passes a cement factory, smoke, plumes blending with monsoon clouds. Angkor's stones breathe, easier knowing this empire too will fall. Wheels lift off temples shrinking into quilts of treetops. You press a palm to the window, cool plexiglass mimicking ancient stone. The hum persists. Your palm rests on moss-cooled bricks, their warmth a phantom ache from centuries of sun storage. Cicadas throttle their engines down jungle nights, respect softness here. Moonlight spills through strangled archways, laying silver film over Coca-Cola caps and Ming Dynasty shards. Equal opportunity decay. A gecko licks dew from Vishnu's concrete wart, the one locals swear sweats before monsoons. You lick your own salt-crusted lips, taste shared humidity. Nights here don't whisper. They exhale. Fireflies mimic faraway cities, their flicker mapping trade routes dead before Columbus sailed. Your flashlight dies, phone battery long surrendered to temple photo ops. Darkness feels kinder this way. Stars slot into gaps where jeweled nagas once coiled. The sky's repair job adequate. Your heel finds a damp stair, granite-worn concave by pilgrim feet and typhoon runoff. 8th century German graffiti winks under your phone's last flicker. A crude, smiley face beside Sanskrit vows. Tourists, eternal species. Dawn creeps in as apricot haze, gilding the Apsara's stolen fingertip in a market boy's fist. 900 years. Fingers still reach. You board a plain caffeine shaky. Press your forehead to the window. Terraced patties blur into Bayon's rain-slick faces. Gravity holds both. Pocketing the Frank's coin feels wrong, but empires rest easier when their relics wander. Let it buy mango slices somewhere or a child's soda. Currency outlives crowns. In your bag a laterite dust, weddings, hotel lint. Ancient, modern, the merger chafes like airline socks. You shake it over a Phnom Penh gutter. Watch red tendrils dissolve into today's monsoon. The earth remembers its ingredients. Sleep comes as a wobbling tuk-tuk ride, noise dissolving into frog choruses. Dreams stitch Jayavarman's face to the frangipani cellars, her beetle nut grin wiser than any stela. You apologize for your sandals crushing lichen. She waves it off. They regrow, we all do. Somewhere, a headless naga sprouts ferns from its neck stump. A concrete lenonwort absorbs twilight. Plastic bottles slowly sink into library moats, future archaeologist puzzles. The dance never ended, only partners changed. Fan blades slice moonlight into lotus petals, or maybe vice versa. Breath syncing with gecko heartbeats, your last waking thought. Not collapse, release. The jungle was always waiting, patient landlord, reclaiming its rented throne. Word count 300.